Hey everybody, how are you guys? I hope you guys are good. I hope I hope you had a good day. I hope you're having a good night, depending on where you are. So, tonight I want to talk about the Henryetta House of Horrors and that whole disaster. Not only was it brutal, the actual crime, but then how it was handled was extremely brutal to see. It really, I've seen corruption in cases before. I have seen incompetency in cases before, but I have never quite seen something where it was so blatant and so out there and so like right in your face that just nothing was done. It's astounding to me. So we're going to go over what we know so far from this case, from the beginning up until now. This is probably, yeah, like I said, this is probably one of the craziest cases I've ever seen because, like I said, it looks like the cops did nothing. And not only that, but then when it was brought to their attention by the family, um, the cops' attitude about it, you know, just their attitude. So, not for nothing, but it does honestly make me wonder. And it makes me wonder why this investigation went the way it did, why they didn't collect any evidence from the home, why they didn't search every building, every trailer, every place on that property, and why none of this evidence was collected. I mean, and now just based off everything we know, um it seems more and more like this was some type of pedo ring, if you guys know what I'm saying, or some type of ring. Because when you take into account everything that they have found, the ages of the victims, they range, the clothing, the 4-inch stack of Polaroids, all the camera discs, all the hard drives, it screams ring, right? So we're just going to go over all of the news clips and the important things that came out so far on this case. It's amazing to me that this man was ever released from prison to do this in the first place. Okay, but we'll get into all that. All right, so I'm going to ask you to please hit that thumbs up. Please consider subbing to the channel. It's a free way to help out the channel. All right, so let's go in to this first video, which was 8 days ago. 8 days ago. Let me make sure. Okay, yep. So let's just start there.
We're going to take you over to Okmulgee County where the...
Sorry, hold on. Give me 1 second. I got to mute this.
Sheriff is expected to release new information about the 2 girls that were found. Let's go there now.
Are we streaming?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we good? Yep. You're not.
You're blocking my shot, sorry.
Okay. All right. What time was it? Jesus. Sorry,
So we're letting you know we're live on 6 right now.
We're live.
approximately at 1500 hours, we arrived out here with a search warrant. We've searched the property and we've located 7 bodies that we are in the process of trying to get the ME to be able to confirm identities of the individuals that were found. We're not going to discuss any of the facts of the case or anything like that, but we are no longer looking we believe to have found everything that we were seeking this morning. So, our hearts go out to the families and friends, schoolmates, and everyone else, and it's just a tragedy in Okmulgee County.
Can you tell us where they were found on the property?
We're not going to disclose anything, but we've been tramping around. So,
And Okmulgee County Sheriff Rice, when you say you found everything that you're looking for, are you insinuating that we're no longer looking for these juveniles?
We believe that we have found the persons. We just are waiting for confirmation. So
all the missing people.
yes.
Does that include McFadden?
Hmm?
Does that include McFadden?
Yes, but again, we cannot confirm anybody until the ME's office comes back and confirms all of them. So,
Sheriff, do you have any idea what led to this?
we have no idea at this time. We're still conducting an investigation. We're still following up the leads, still doing everything that we can just in case there's something that is left open. We don't want to miss anything, so everybody's still actively going. I want to thank the Violent Crime Task Force, the DA's office, Sheriff's Department, Henryetta PD, Okmulgee PD, OSBI, and all the other entities that come out here and assisting with this. So again, it's a tragic day in Okmulgee County again, and we just ask that you pray for the families.
At this point, are these deaths considered foul play?
Any unattended death is foul play. So again, we don't want to speculate. We're just going to wait until we find out what all the facts are and everybody's identified.
Is there any wounds on these
We-
bodies that we can?
We can't go into any of that at this time. OSBI is going to be a spokesperson after this point, after this notification that I'm doing now, and then he will reach out to the media.
Would you consider this a homicide investigation?
Yes, any unattended death is a homicide.
Sheriff, was the brake finding this vehicle over here
No,
across
sir.
the road?
No, sir.
Or was it, you got a search warrant to go in here?
Yes.
Was that when had you discovered anything before this? You got a search warrant, went up there and looked?
We had to wait on the search warrant to go and look. We follow the statutes around here, so just covering our basis and going in proper like we're supposed to.
Have any weapons been recovered?
We're not going to discuss any of the details. We're just sticking to, what we have right now.
Have
What
the
was your
families been
knowledge of-
notified?
Sir?
Have the families been notified?
Yes, or we wouldn't be doing the notification to y'all, but the families have been notified.
Sheriff, can you talk about who else was involved? When initially we were looking for 4 to 5 people. Were there other people reported missing?
Nobody was reported missing. There were other family members related to the one family.
Can
So-
you say how many of these 7 are juveniles?
No, I can't at this time.
There's no ongoing threat to the public. Everything's contained right here.
That is correct, sir. We believe that there's no other threat to the community, and we will notify if we believe that anything else has changed that.
Sheriff, can you talk about the impact this has obviously on you as a community member, on your agency, on your deputies?
The families first, our community second. My guy is third, and I'm the last person that needs to be worried about. So,
Sheriff, you've been sheriff here in Okmulgee County for decades. I mean, has this county ever seen anything like this?
not this magnitude, no. We've had our share of troubles and woes, but this one's pretty bad.
What did you know about Jesse McFadden prior to any involvement today at this property?
Not going to get into any details. I mean, there's facts out there. You can back those up 100% if you need to. We'll share more in the future, but there was nothing that alarmed us. I mean, so.
Okay, now I just wanted to pause it there for a second. So there's a couple of things. So at this point, during this interview, they had been on the property. Okay, they had been in the house, but they had not collected anything. So they knew, like Okay, this is a bad situation. Now, here's my thing. Okay. He's just said that they did not know anything about, they had no reason to be suspicious of Jesse. Now, you're talking about a guy who is a convicted felon, right? Who is a rapist, who I'll get to this point later, but he actually committed this same crime in prison and still got out at the same time. He got no extra time. He actually got out early on good behavior, which, I mean, shaking my head is crazy to me. But they said that they had no idea. Now, I feel like law enforcement for sure has to know about, he was a registered SO, right? So they had to have known. Okay. Now, okay, I'll just get through this and then I'll get to what else I want to say later when we get there.
How will your office and the community, come together for something like this? Talk about the days ahead, any type of.
Our guys won't be done for a week. There's just still a lot to do. So our days are surrounded with typing and warrants and following through, and they won't get to think about things for a while.
Is there any idea as to how long these bodies have been on the property?
No. They haven't been missing for long, eh? So, anyway, I want to thank y'all very much for coming out. I appreciate y'all respecting the family, and please, still be respectful. They have a lot of grieving. Thank you.
Okay. So that was at the very beginning, and they already, I don't know, it just seemed to me very, now I know that it's got to be shocking and it has to really weigh on you when you see things like that. Okay. But again, at the same time, it's still in the back of my mind going, well, they clearly saw all of this when they walked through the house. They clearly did. And you got the sheriff's office who was trying to pass the buck to OSBI saying, well, we were just supposed to do the outside. They were going to do inside the house. Like, that's not how it works at all. Okay. And then you have, so you have the fact that they walked in, they could see all of these things. They saw all of this stuff that should have been very alarming to them, but nothing was collected. And then the attitude, like, well, what good would that do? To me, I mean, are you trying to cover for some of your own? Do does somebody, we're talking small town, does somebody have their hand in the cookie jar? And, because what other explanation could there be that they just didn't collect anything? They didn't take anything and they were like, why bother? Let's just, listen, he's dead. Let's just put this case to bed, okay? And that's not right, because the families deserve to know what happened. I you know what I mean? Okay, so let's just move on to the next one.
Seven bodies found on the property of a registered sex offender in Oklahoma. As of this afternoon, all of them have been identified. Among them, two local teenage girls, 14-year-old Ivy Webster and 16-year-old Brittany Brewer, who had been reported missing just yesterday morning. The 39-year-old suspect, also among the dead, had missed a court appearance, and the bodies were discovered as law enforcement executed a search warrant. News Nation's Marky Martin is live in Henryetta, Oklahoma. So, Marky, any idea what happened here?
Hey, Nicole. Yeah, so there was, a big search for those two girls that you just mentioned off the top. They were reportedly seen traveling with 39-year-old sex offender Jesse McFadden. And this property right behind me, Nicole, this is actually his land. This is his home where those 7 bodies were found at the very back of this property. Families telling News Nation that these girls were having a sleepover with one of McFadden's stepdaughters. So it sounds like this group, they were all friends, possibly even classmates, had spent the weekend together, and then that turned deadly. Take a look at this chopper video. You can actually get a better sense of what kind of property we're dealing with here, Nicole, and what law enforcement has really had to comb through. A lot of different agencies coming together yesterday to locate those victims and the possible suspect. McFadden was set to appear in court yesterday on child pornography charges. Oklahoma Department of Corrections prison records show that he was convicted of first-degree rape back in 2003, then released in 2020. Meanwhile, now you have all these families, of course, grieving the loss of their daughters, their grandchildren. And through tears last night, Brittany Brewer's mother detailed her devastation while talking with Ashley Banfield.
But she was just a very outgoing girl. Never met a stranger. Full of life. She was actually in a beauty pageant. She was excited about all that because she was winning, and she's like, "Mama, I'm winning. I am really." She was, "I really am beautiful," and I said, "Yeah, you are."
And another Oklahoma woman earlier today identifying 4 of the 7 victims as her daughter and her 3 grandchildren. I got off the phone a little bit earlier with OSBI. They say as far as law enforcement is concerned, the confirmation of identities has to come from the medical examiner, who is still working on that. But McFadden's body is believed to be one of the 7. So, Nicole, yesterday, authorities telling Henryetta and the public that there seems to be no more threat. Nicole.
All right, so Marky, saying this appeared to have been a sleepover. So we're talking about a group of friends here, and as you said, possibly classmates.
Yeah, Brittany Brewer's mother telling Ashley Banfield last night that this group of teens had hung out together before. They apparently were all at the lake this weekend, and Jesse McFadden had offered to take them home. Brittany's mom said, quote, he never took them home. But also Henryetta Public Schools posting a message to their Facebook account yesterday. I wanted to share that with you here because the verbiage is interesting on this. It reads, "At this time, we are all grieving over the tragedy of the loss of several of our students. Our hearts are hurting, and we have considered what would be best for our students here in the coming days. We will have school, and this will be an extremely difficult day." So really, Nicole, based on that one word, several there, it does sound like there are several teens and students who attend Henryetta Public School who were involved in this yesterday. Nicole.
Yeah, our hearts certainly go out to all of those families. Absolutely tragic. Thank you, Marky.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television.
It's so sad. And you could see how heartbroken, her mother was, and Ivy's parents. It is crazy. And I cannot imagine. My heart goes out to them for real. Not only did they have the loss that they had that they're never going to get over, but it was handled like nobody cared. Like the cops didn't even care. And that is just heartbreaking. Okay.
Justin, you just went back down to the scene. Talk to us just why you wanted to go back there this morning.
I wanted to see her. I wanted answers. I wanted to go on the land and get the answers myself, and I know I can't. But we need to be told the answers of everything here soon. I'm tired of hearing we can't know right now, and it's frustrating. We need to know. Everybody needs to know.
And kind of tell us, this weekend, I know you were contacted. Just kind of talk about how the events unfolded and how you learned about everything.
Well, she was supposed to be home. Now
Start
that
from the beginning.
Okay, so Saturday she was going out. They were going to go to the mall and then main event, which they did, and spend the night. and as far as we knew, it was
as they've done before.
yeah. Ivy
They-
and Brittany were going to Tiffany's, so nothing out of the ordinary. Me and Ivy were Snapchatting up until about midnight Saturday night, and then Sunday, I got a message from her, which was a little different, but I didn't think nothing of it. It was, hey, we're gonna run to McAllister. We have to go. Jesse's got to work on like the ranch or fence, whatever, which they've gone before. So again, didn't think nothing of it. But usually I get, hey, mom, is that okay? Or I love you. Didn't get that, but I didn't think much. I said, okay, try. She said, we'll be home by 5. I said, okay, if you can, a little earlier because, you know, school tomorrow type thing. Okay, I'll let you know type thing. No, I love you. No, none of that. Then I get a call from Jesse a little while, about 5 or so, saying, oh, yeah, we're still out here in McAllister. The phone was really cutting out. Not getting good service. I said, okay, keep me updated. And that was the last
And
contact.
that probably,
I believe the girls were already gone at that point.
And this is new information that you guys are sharing with us.
Yes. They never made it to McAllister.
he planned it, and when he sent that text or call or whatever to what's her name, the girl that he made contact with when he was in jail, the reason why he was going to court, we were supposed to go to court yesterday, he told her that what's going to happen is going to be all her fault. So he planned it ahead of time.
Why do you feel that your daughter was involved in his?
I feel the evil in him wanted to get back at the world, and he wanted to hurt the people that he loved most. And our daughter was best friends with Tiffany, his daughter, and they were inseparable. They did everything together, and I think he just wanted to act out at the world and take as many as he possibly can. We're finding out that there was some other girls that were contacted to go out that day as well, and some of them didn't go, but it could have been a lot worse.
So obviously, you know, he's going to court and all these things. I mean, you kind of seem like you're maybe a little bit upset with the law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I am.
kind of talk to me about that. I mean,
He should have been stuck in jail. He should have rotted in there from the get-go.
Especially if he was sneaking phones in and
He snuck a phone in jail and solicited with a minor in jail
and was still released.
If that's not any proof that he can't be controlled, then I don't know what is. And Okmulgee County Jail and McAllister and Pittsburgh County, they need to be held accountable. They do. We need answers of why this monster was released to be able to hurt kids.
It is amazing too that after everything that he did, like he had raped a person in jail, and they said that they handled it internally. He got caught with a cell phone in there talking and communicating with a victim while in prison. He did these things and still got out on early behavior. I mean, that is so insane to me. You know, and it's really crazy because with somebody that has crimes like he does, okay, crimes against children, he got out on good behavior. And you have people in there on petty larceny or petty, like something to do with drugs. And they're in there way longer. It's our system is totally screwed up. Okay, let's move on. So this next one is his previous victim. Okay. He should have never been let out of prison.
The suspect in this horrendous crime is a 39-year-old registered sex offender. I mentioned his name before. It is Jesse McFadden. He had a long criminal history. And in fact, he was due in court just today on child porn charges and soliciting a minor. That he was doing while he was incarcerated. Joining me now is Crystal Strong. Crystal was a child rape victim of McFadden's in 2003, and she helped to put him in jail for 20 years. Crystal, I can't imagine what you're thinking at this time, given what you've been through, and then just hearing from Milena about what she's coping with.
I mean, I'm okay. My trauma's been dealt with. My heart goes out for the families. I begged the DA a long time ago not to ever let him out of prison because I knew that he would do this to someone else. I've never been contacted about when he was getting out. The last time I heard from anybody was when I was 17, and the DA or whoever it was told me that Jesse was really high on meth, that he's sorry, things happen and I need to learn how to forgive. And I hung up on her and I tried to suppress the memories and move on with my life. I don't have any contact with Canadian Shores or any of that area. And the minute I heard about this morning, I had a gut-wrenching feeling that those babies weren't going to come out of there.
Crystal, this happened to you at the same age. I mean, Brittany's mom just told us she had only just turned 15. You were 16 when he attacked you. What was the circumstance?
He was actually, so I grew up, my dad lived around there, around Canadian Shores, and I grew up with his girlfriend and her sister. And he had showed up. I had been at a party that night in McAllister, and I had left my truck in McAllister and got drove home by someone else, some friends. And 3 friends actually, and my stepmom had drove by that night in the middle of my rape, but they kept going because my truck wasn't there. But Jesse had showed up and kept telling me that Holly kicked him out. He needed somewhere to go, things like that. And I was like, look, you really just need to call Holly. Like, you don't need to be here. And then I remember just being shoved through my door, a sock in my mouth, and being tied up to my own bed, and just horrible things happening. I remember the DA telling me that I would never have children. I just suppressed a lot of those memories, and then today brought it all back. And I just, all I wanted was those babies to be brought home.
And that's what we were all hoping for when that alert went out, that they would find those girls.
I've been talking to Caitlin Babb. They've been putting her case on the back burner for a lot of years. The girl with the pornography, with the charges that he was supposed to go to court for, he basically told her this morning, and I have screenshots of him telling her that when this all goes down, this is going to be your fault. And supposedly she gave that to the cops, I guess, and nothing was done.
And I want to be really clear, Crystal, you're talking about Caitlin. She was the subject of those lewd photographs that Jesse McFadden had in prison on a contraband phone. And she has spoken with you and given permission for you to tell her story.
Yes. She said that everybody keeps blowing her off.
Sorry, repeat that?
She said everyone keeps blowing her off and not doing anything. She's been just shoved off to the back burner. And then last night, Jesse had messaged her, I guess from a fake account called Holidays. I have that screenshotted too, telling her, I've done everything I was supposed to do, and you just won't let well enough alone, basically. And now this is going to be on you. Basically, I felt like he was telling her he was going to do something, and she took it to I said, you need to take that to the cops. And she said, I did, and nothing's being done.
And she was prepared to go through with this court hearing today, because this court hearing today for him was about that.
She's been trying to do this. This all happened, I guess, when she was 15 years old. He even told her about me back when all this happened, tried telling her that it all started like I was trying to do it with him, and then all of a sudden I didn't want it anymore. He had that girl so brainwashed.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television.
And that that is just so sad. I feel like so sad for her. And listen, I mean, they told the cops, she gave the evidence to the cops. that he tried to contact her that he did contact her the other day, and nothing was done about it. You know, and why do they keep putting his case on the back burner? Why do they keep pushing it back and back and back and back? Why did he have an upcoming court date and no cop in town knew? Like, that just doesn't, I find that very hard to believe. And I'm sorry, I'm not stating, you know, I'm not saying anything here, but I am pointing out the different red flags that are popping up here. And, you know, that's reasonable. Anybody I feel like would be doing the same thing. Okay. Now, this next one is Ivy's parents again. 7 days ago. Okay, and then we'll work our way back to recently.
Tonight, the heartbreak turns to questions and anger for the parents of Ivy Webster after launching a search for their 14-year-old daughter when she failed to return home when expected. They made the awful discovery no parent ever wants to make. She had been in the company of a convicted pedophile, Jesse McFadden. Why was he out of prison is one of the questions they want answered. And joining me now are Ashley and Justin Webster, the parents of Ivy. First of all, I am so sorry to be talking to you under these circumstances. What, if anything, have police told you?
Not much.
Yeah, not much. That's been kind of part of the problem through this process is we didn't get much of any information yesterday. I had to drive to the crime scene just to get some kind of word. And even still today, we haven't really heard much of anything, but I know a lot of it has to do with getting a medical examiner to finish their job.
They haven't told you anything about what they think might have happened on the property?
We just know that it happened on the property and when there were several victims, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Did you know Jesse McFadden?
We knew him just because our kids were close. So we would communicate, you know, pick up drop-offs, stuff like that. But we weren't like friendly outside of that. But we had met him and Holly many times.
And were you aware that he had a record, that he'd recently been released from prison and had he was a convicted sex offender?
We had no idea.
We
didn't
idea.
find out until we saw like the Amber Alert with his mugshot, and then our phone started blowing up from Facebook and people just sending us everything that they knew about it.
Wait, so this is a small town. You had no idea this man had been recently released from prison after being convicted of rape and was due in court just yesterday for child pornography? You had no idea.
We moved here 2 years ago, and Tiffany Guess and our daughter were best friends, and I guess if Holly had to say something knowing that he was, then she should have said something, but we didn't really know anything about this guy. We had a read on him that he was a little weird, but we felt comfortable, especially knowing that several of our daughter's friends would go over there all the time and hang out. They would go over there on the weekends. Tiffany would come over here at our house and stay here on the weekends, and it was just back and forth, and we never suspected any kind of maliciousness.
Right, so this was not the first time that the girls at all had spent time at each other's houses, not the first time there had been a sleepover, no warning at all that this was somewhat different, nothing
Nope.
about this weekend's plans was a little bit different or off to you?
No.
Nothing.
Jesse usually took Tiffany and her friends to the lake all the time.
Sorry, I just wanted to pause it there for 1 second. And I just wanted to say that I mean, this all seems very weird, and it seems to me like we should be looking on the outside as well. Like there are definitely more people involved, I believe, in like why would he do this? Okay. Why would he kill everybody and then take his own life? He got out of prison, right? He was never going to go back to prison. He could have easily ran. But and having all this evidence all over the place, it just seems very strange to me, you know? I just, you know, so when cops first came out and they were like, listen, you know, the only person that knows about this is dead. The only person that can tell us anything is dead. So, I mean, let the case die with him. Like, basically, that's how I took it. And that's how it seemed to the public. You know, that's how Ivy's parents took it as well. And, you know, there's just a lot of things here that don't make that throw up red flags to me. So that's all I wanted to say.
They've
Yeah,
been
kayaking.
they've
right
been
by
to
the
that
forest.
ranch that was brought up, but they said that they never even went to the ranch the other day.
Yeah, they'd go roller skating, camping. They were always doing stuff.
So when was the last time you spoke to Ivy?
The last time me and her communicated was Saturday late at night. Me and her were sending Snapchat pictures to each other.
What was she saying to you in those?
And then I got a message.
Sorry, one quick thing that I wanted to add was that now with all that evidence that they didn't collect, I don't think that can be used because it's inadmissible now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but chain of custody was broken when the evidence was not collected. It was collected by family members, and I'm pretty sure that that's not admissible in a court of law. So was that the whole idea, right? Because none of the evidence can be used now, which seems like ding dang. Somebody's covering up for somebody here.
Sending me pictures with filters on. And then I sent her one of her dog, and closer to midnight, she's like, Mom, you're past your bedtime. You gotta go to bed. And then I got a message the next morning, Sunday morning, that was from her phone, but I don't believe it was from her anymore, saying that they were going to McAllister and that she would be home later.
We think Jesse wrote
That one.
that one,
Why?
and it probably had already happened by that point.
Because the way Ivy is, she's my best friend. And she is constantly, Mom, I love you. Okay, Mom, we're gonna go to eat. Okay, Mom, we're done eating. We're gonna go do this now. She's very, very, she lets me know everything. And this message was just kind of like, hey, we're going to McAllister. I'll see you around 5. And I said, okay, well, you know, like, let me know if you can come home soon or earlier. You know, it's a school night. Okay. It was just different, but I also didn't think anything of it because it just kind of sounded like maybe we're in a hurry.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television.
Craziness, but that's what it seems like to me. You know, it seems like that might have been, you know, the whole thing was don't collect the evidence, release the house so the family goes in there. That makes all the evidence no good. You know what I'm saying? Even with the cops coming back and saying collect the evidence, it's still not, you still can't do that because chain of custody is broken. People that, you know, people were in there. And I'm pretty sure that that's how it works. And it's not right. You know, I've never seen such a thing. Okay, now this next video is from 7 days ago. Okay, you guys. And look how much we've learned already in the first 3 days. Like, look, I mean, it's craziness.
Jan Mayo got a call from the sheriff's office and heard the news that she never expected in her life that she would hear, that 4 of the people who were found among those bodies were actually her own flesh and blood, her family members, her daughter, and her 3 grandchildren. Among the others, the youngest grandchild had 2 dear friends that she'd asked over for a slumber party, and they were headed to their stepdad's ranch. That stepdad was convicted of first-degree rape in 2003, served 2 decades in prison, during which he committed another crime involving a young girl, and was supposed to appear in court the day that the 2 young friends were found dead among those other 7. That's the man in question, Jesse McFadden, 39 years old, convicted sex offender. His wife, one of the dead. His 3 stepchildren, that would be his wife's 3 children, 3 of the dead. And those 2 kids who were there for the slumber party, friends of the youngest stepchild. They were among the bodies as well. We're learning more details tonight, at least details about how 2 of those victims were killed. As the police were searching for Ivy Webster and Brittany Brewer, the 2 teenagers who were just supposed to be on a slumber party, family members have told us that Brittany Brewer was shot in the head. Family members have also told us that the oldest of the children of that sex offender's wife, Riley Allen, just 17, that she was also shot to death. Brittany's mom, Melania Chabelle, told us that her sons informed her, and I will quote her, that the police found all the bodies scattered around in different places. So that means she was trying to run away and get away from him. He shot her 1 time in the head, and that is what killed her. Again, that is the mother of one of those teenagers that had just gone over for the slumber party, Melania Chabelle, telling us that exclusively tonight. The court record saying that the court case, the trial that was supposed to start yesterday, that's when Jesse McFadden was supposed to show up and answer to soliciting sexual conduct with a minor and possession of child pornography. All of those crimes committed while in prison on a contraband cell phone in 2017. Well, it didn't happen. That trial didn't happen because he took his own life as well as the other 6 people he murdered. The question is, why was he out? He had a 20-year sentence, but he got out 3 years early. We called the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board, and we got this statement. Jesse McFadden was released in November of 2020 because he discharged his sentence, not due to any action by the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board. But it still doesn't make any sense to us. He had a 20-year sentence, he got out 3 years early, all the while charged with the same kinds of crimes he was in there in the first place for. So why did it take 6 years to prosecute him for crimes that were committed while he was actually behind bars? Why couldn't they prosecute him, say, within those 3 years before he was let out? These are hard questions that are going to have to be answered. And the harder questions are how this crime scene played out, how these innocent people lost their lives. Joining me now live in this exclusive interview is Jan Mayo. Jan is the mother of Holly Guess. Holly was murdered as well as her 3 children. She was his wife. That means that Jan Mayo has lost her daughter and her 3 grandchildren. And Jan is with us from Westville, Oklahoma tonight. We're also joined exclusively by Holly's aunt, Lynn Watt. Ladies, thank you for being here. And I know that you want to get your story out. You wanted to speak to us about what's happened. Let me just ask you this. Jan, have you learned anything else, anything new from the sheriffs, from the police, from the authorities who are investigating this?
The only thing that I've heard so far is that my granddaughter, Riley Elizabeth Allen, was shot in the head and died that way, and that my grandson, Michael Mayos, was undetermined cause of death. The other two, they haven't determined yet. They haven't done their autopsies.
So your daughter, Holly, and her youngest, Tiffany, 13 years old, they haven't finalized the autopsies on those two, so they haven't been able to give you a cause of death?
Oh, not yet.
Did the sheriffs or did any of the authorities tell you what they think happened just from being able to assess the scene?
No, I can't get any information. They're not releasing any information to me at all.
What did the authorities tell you when you got that just horrendous phone call?
All they told me at first was that Jesse was missing and the two girls that he supposedly kidnapped were missing. Nothing about my daughter or my grandchildren. I had to find that out from Facebook, that they'd found 7 bodies. And nobody told me anything until 10 o'clock that evening that my granddaughters, my grandson, and my daughter were dead.
So
It
to
was
be
10
clear, the
o'clock
police, did they, at 10 o'clock, did the authorities eventually call you to give you this news officially?
Yes, at 10 o'clock. And that's when they told me that my family was being transported to the Tulsa Medical Examiner's office.
Was there any other detail that they were able to give you during that phone call?
The only thing that they told me at that time was that they had been shot and nothing more.
Did they say that all of them had been shot? Because originally we had heard that just Riley had been shot, but did they say that all of the family members had been shot?
That's what I was told, that they had all been shot and that he took his own life.
Was there any indication at any time, Jan, that this man was so incredibly dangerous and to the point of being lethal?
No, there was nothing. I saw them Thursday at my granddaughter's choir concert, and everybody was happy. They were just smiling. They were in a good mood. Tiffy had gotten up and sang with her choir. She was getting ready to do cheerleader tryouts on Friday. They were just happy.
And did Holly know anything about his criminal background, his time served, and the charges of criminal rape that he had served that time for?
Yes. The only thing was he had lied to her and told her that the girl was 19 years old, not 16, and that everything was just a misunderstanding. He paid a young lady to portray the victim to sit down and have a talk with my daughter. And she told him, oh, it was just a misunderstanding. You don't get 20 years for a misunderstanding.
He paid a person to impersonate the victim of his crime to tell your daughter a lie, that it was her and that it wasn't a crime?
Yeah, it's exactly what he did.
And he never indicated at any time that he was a registered sex offender at that property where your family was killed.
No, my husband and I didn't find out until middle to late March, when my husband was looking up a coworker that he worked with to find out what his charges were, and Jesse McFadden's criminal history popped up, that he was a registered sex offender. My husband then contacted our daughter to find out what was going on. Why were they there? Why was he in that house with our grandchildren?
And what date was that?
That was in March, probably about the 20th.
And what answers were you given when you confronted him with the fact that he was a registered sex offender?
Our daughter wouldn't let us confront him. She said, "Oh, it was just a misunderstanding. I've talked to the girl." At that time, we didn't know anything about the real victim.
It's an unbelievable story, Jan. I cannot believe that this has happened to you and to your family. Lynn, is there more that you can add? I know that you may be speaking to other people. You are the sister of Holly's father, so you're
Yes.
the kid's aunt. Tell
Yes,
me
ma'am.
what you've been able to glean from any of the people who have at least informed you of this tragedy.
Well, the lady he paid to pretend to be the victim contacted me and was telling me that she was sorry, that she was paid to do so, and she contacted me. So that's how we learned that Holly never spoke to the real victim.
When did that happen?
It was yesterday. I got contacted yesterday.
So the impersonator has now reached out to you, realizing just how dangerous her actions now have turned out to be.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
Have you informed the police about this person?
No, I haven't spoke to the police. I actually contacted the police because I didn't understand why the Amber Alert didn't have my niece and my great nieces and nephew. And I also contacted them in Henryetta to ask if, when we learned of Jesse being on a registered list, if the girls could be there. Were they aware that children were living in that home? So I personally called the sheriff's department. And I was told by the sheriff's department they were not aware of the situation, and at that time did not know that there was a registered sex offender at that address, and would contact me again. And I never got contacted back. Never.
It's such a remarkable sequence of events. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we saw a marriage license for just last year. Is that right, Lynn? That Holly just married Jesse last year.
And in fact, we thought they got married on Christmas Eve. There was actually a wedding cake at the Christmas party. We didn't know the marriage took place in May until last night.
And how long had they known each other before they got married?
Jan, I'm not sure about that. Do you know? Everyone keeps asking, and I'm not sure.
Not sure when she met him. I just know that they moved in together in, I think it was just after Christmas in 2021.
So he was released from prison in 2020, and within a year, he was moving in with your daughter.
Yeah.
Did the kids, Jan, ever say anything about him? Did anyone ever mention anything out of the ordinary, that he behaved in a certain way, that he was uncomfortable, that he was sexual in nature, or that he was violent in any way? Did they ever say anything?
The kids weren't allowed to see us. Jesse controlled everything. We weren't allowed to see him. They moved the children and my daughter 2.5 hours away, and we weren't allowed to have contact with them other than when they were around Holly and Jesse both. So we didn't understand what was going on, why we weren't allowed to see the kids. My husband and I raised those children. They lived with us more than they did Holly.
So the only contact you had with these kids was just on the telephone?
Not even that.
On the telephone occasionally, and at events at the school. We were allowed to go to track meets. The kids weren't allowed to come stay the night with us. And if they did, Jesse would track their every movement. He would use their cell phones, track them.
And Lynn, what were you just about to add?
Holly was extremely close to my brother. I don't know that I've ever seen a father-daughter bond. And anytime, like, I was probably the most outspoken family member about Jesse being a registered sex offender. And I would say, do this, Jan, say this. And anytime we tried to approach the situation, she was punished. She was shut down. She was constantly on eggshells.
She wouldn't be able to talk to her children. So she had to keep a balance. She had to accept things if she wanted to keep an eye on the grandkids and talk to her daughter. It was just an everyday call from Jan, just so stressed. My brother actually relocated to Henryetta to be close when Holly moved. He got an apartment and moved to Henryetta so that he could attend the school events and be there for his grandkids. And he was living in that town and still was not allowed to see the kids.
So it sounded as though Jesse McFadden had an extremely controlling relationship over Holly and all three kids and became increasingly unwilling to accept the fact that there might be something wrong with this man and that he might actually be something other than this actress and this liar who had been hired by her husband, that person had told her.
And absolutely. And anytime we questioned anything or asked anything, Jan and Michael were punished. That meant they didn't get to talk to the children or see the children. They were cut out. So we just had to be quiet.
I am just so incredibly sorry for what both of you are going through and what you have been going through throughout this whole ordeal. And we will stay in close contact with you as additional details, become available. But our hearts, our thoughts, everything. I mean, there's nothing I can say to make this better, but please know that we are deeply, deeply in sympathy and in solidarity with you tonight, both of you. Thank you.
I mean, it's just craziness. Everybody had to have known. They said he was so controlling. The kids could never be around the grandparents or family members alone without the parents being present. That tells me that the parents were worried. Holly and Jesse were worried about the kids telling them things that they shouldn't tell them, telling them things that they didn't want them to know. And it's not far-fetched to think that, I mean, he was a sex offender. He was a convicted rapist. He lived in a house with a young girl. I mean, I'm sure the kids were victims. I'm sure they were. And it came out that Holly was involved in it. Of course she was. I mean, of course. You don't have something like that and the wife not know. You don't have torture items all over your house and bondage and chains and locks and shit like that and the woman of the house not know. I immediately, when police walked into this house, okay, and they saw everything that they saw and we saw everything that we saw, they immediately should have taped off the entire crime scene, taken photographs of everything, went out and searched the entire property. Now they got the dive teams out there. Now they got diggers out there. Now they're doing things because the public's going, hey, we know we're watching you not do this. We're watching you totally screw this case. So now, I mean, really all you have is the evidence on the outside, that only the cops got to, if that's even the case. But there was a lot of important things in that house, but it's crazy. And I am a little bit confused because Ivy's parents said that she's been over to their house before, like they've done things before. And did they not see the stuff there? I mean, they had it right in the kitchen. They had stuff laying out in the open. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's very strange. But I would believe 100% that this was some type of ring and he was involved with a whole ring of people. And with the way he was treated in the system where he got out early, he still was able to commit these crimes and still got out early on good behavior. And the cops went into this house and they did with the evidence the way that they did. I mean, it just shows a lot of stuff. They kept pushing his case back and back and back. Why? I mean, this shows a lot of, I'm just going to say, secrets that are just now becoming available to the public, that are just now starting to seep out. You know, I think maybe they didn't think this case was going to go as far as it did. I don't think they thought the media was going to pick it up like they did. And here we are again, you know, with the cover-ups and the corruption. I mean, there's no other explanation. But again, that's just my opinion. That's just me. Okay. Now this next one, let's play and let's hear from the father of the other victim. You know, and at this, and I just want to say that at this point, he could have forced the kids to invite the other girls over. He could have, you know, groomed them to where they were afraid to not do what he said, or they were, you know, they had to bring him more victims. They had to bring, you know, it makes you wonder where toddler clothes came from, and where's the toddler that those clothes belong to. You know, that pond was new. Let's, you know, this, I mean, I think this goes so much farther than what we are seeing right now. Okay. I'm going to just ask you guys again to please hit that thumbs up if you have not done so. Super easy, and it doesn't hurt, I promise. But it's a free way to help out the channel.
So many are still in shock with this next horrific story. An investigation is underway in eastern Oklahoma after a tragic discovery: 7 bodies found on a rural property on Monday. Police were there searching for 2 missing teenage girls, 14-year-old Ivy Webster and 16-year-old Brittany Brewer, after they did not return back home on Sunday after they were visiting with a friend. That friend's stepfather, Jesse McFadden, was a convicted rapist, and he was due in court on charges related to allegedly sexting with a minor. Parents of the teen girls said they had no idea, and they want to know how McFadden was allowed to live in a home with children and also have access to other kids, including theirs. Police found the bodies of the missing teens and McFadden dead on his property this week, along with McFadden's wife and her 3 children. The sheriff is not revealing much at this hour, but says investigators have all of the information they need, and they do not believe there is now a threat to that community. Here with me this morning is Nathan Brewer. He is Brittany Brewer's dad. Nathan, there really are no adequate words to express my sympathy and my condolences to you. My heart breaks as a parent, as a person, for what you are going through. Thank you for giving us a moment to remember and honor your daughter this morning.
Thank you.
In your grief, do you have any more clarity about what happened and why?
Not exactly at this point.
We have spoken with Ivy's parents here at News Nation, and they said to us that they're not getting a lot of information from police and investigators. Is that true for you and your family, Nathan?
Exactly. We not really much. Only thing now that they've been saying is, you know, how she died.
And what are they telling you?
That she died from a gunshot wound to the head.
That's hard to process.
Yes, it is.
What else are they doing right now on that property?
As far as I know, they're still doing their final searches and doing their investigation. Sorry.
So tell me about that sleepover and the teens getting together on Friday. What did you know about their plans?
They were supposed to go to Tulsa to the mall. And then while I was at work, Brittany came back and told her stepmom that they were going to go swimming. And she got her swimsuit and a towel and left again. And that was the last time she saw Brittany. And the last time I saw Brittany was on Saturday.
And tell me about that interaction, what the two of you talked about.
I had just we had just gone to do a fundraiser for her youth camp that she was going to, supposed to be going to in this summer. And we just got done doing that. And when I came back to the house and dropped her off, and Jesse and Tiffany and Ivy were here to pick her up.
So did you know Jesse McFadden at all? What was your interaction with him?
I had, Brittany had spent weekends with him for about 2 years. And I had met Jesse twice, and nothing had come alarming to me that he would even be, you know, a registered sex offender or anything. And I learned all that news when I was downloading my video surveillance at my house of Brittany leaving and getting into his vehicle and his license plate number.
So you had no knowledge of his criminal past or the fact that he was due in court on child porn charges even as recently as this week?
Not at all. And that's why I have got all the information to my local legislation, and I'm going to push for the House, for at least for House and Senate, to try to pass a bill. And at least Oklahoma, I want it to go nationwide, but to be either an alert system like a silver alert, amber alert system. When people get out that is registered sex offenders, you get a mass text of their name and what state they are registering in.
Well, and there are measures in place now, as you know, Nathan. They failed you and your family in this situation. You should have known, and you didn't. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider, and don't forget
Okay. Yes. So he did have a brother, and the apple didn't fall too far from the tree. Okay, from his mother as well. But yeah, we'll get into all that. So let's move on. Let's get to this next one. Look down. You see that thumbs up? If you have not clicked that already, please make sure to do so. Thank you.
that means that Jan Mayo has lost her daughter and her 3 grandchildren. And Jan is with us from Westville, Oklahoma.
Sorry, guys, that's the wrong one. Give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry about that.
It is such an unbelievable story. Just the facts alone, let alone what we're learning just tonight on this program. I am joined now by Joe Guess. He is the father of the youngest victim, 13-year-old Tiffany Guess. He has his friend Sonny Summers with him for moral support. Joe, I am just so sorry for you and what your family is dealing with and going through. Have you heard any more information or details from authorities about this crime?
No, I've got one phone call, and that phone call was yesterday saying they found 7 bodies, and that's the only thing I've heard.
Who was it that made that phone call?
It was some investigator down there at the property, but that's all I know.
And an investigator was able to inform you of the fate of your daughter?
They said just 7 victims. They didn't tell me who it was.
How did you find out?
Facebook, the news online, and Holly's mother finally said or posted that it was the kids when they said on there confirmed.
So you've had no outreach, no contact from authorities in any way, even just for emotional support in this terrible crime?
No, not at all.
I am so sorry to hear that, Joe. Did you know anything about this perpetrator, this stepfather of Tiffany's, Jesse McFadden? Did you know anything about his history as a registered sex offender and as a rapist?
No, because my daughter would not have spent a second in the house. I would have brought the whole damn police force with me, or I would have drug him out by the nape of his head.
Holly never mentioned anything at all to you about this.
No, the only thing we ever talked about was at the beginning of their relationship. We had an understanding that no one would be around the kids unless we both agreed upon it, and we did a background check, and we were okay with it. I asked if there was a background check. She said yes, nothing was there.
So you were lied to about the background, because as we're learning now from the children's grandmother, Jan Mayo, Holly did find out about the criminal background, but unfortunately, this
She was lied to
beast,
herself.
Jesse McFadden hired an actress to lie to her to say that she was the rape victim and that it was all a misunderstanding. Do you think that's why Holly didn't tell you?
I don't know. I know that from the bottom of my heart, I know that if any one of them would have told me anything, I would have been there. Period. I'd have been there. I don't care. Ex-wife not. I'd have been there.
What was your last communication with your daughter, Tiffany?
It was last Thursday. I talked with her a little bit after as I was talking with Holly. The kids were talking to me in the background. All the kids. I don't care. The older two aren't biologically mine, but I was there since Riley was 1, and Michael James wasn't even born. And we were married 13 years.
Those are
my
all his kids. They all look to him as daddy.
So this is an additional blow. I didn't know that. I didn't know you had a close relationship with the other kids, Riley and Michael, and you had a chance to speak on the phone.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even a few months ago. Me and Holly were still talking about possibilities of me going through the legal system and still adopting the older two.
Even though she had married Jesse McFadden?
Yes.
Do you have any
Those
thoughts as to why she might have been thinking that you could adopt the children when she was married to someone else?
Because we've been working on it for over 10 years.
They loved him. They didn't look at nobody else as their daddy. This is their daddy right here.
They came to me the last season of Daring Track and was like, Dad, we know you're not our biological dad, but we don't care. You're our dad.
So Riley and Michael called you dad as well?
Yes.
I am just so sorry for what you're going through. This is just, it's such a tremendous, I mean, it's an unimaginable loss that what's happened. At this point, do you hold anyone responsible for having let Jesse McFadden out of prison? It looks like 3 years early, while a crime had been committed in prison, a crime that was similar to the crime he committed that got him into prison.
Yeah, he never should have been let out. The legal system completely failed. And not to mention, where's the sign? Where's the pink light? Where's all the indicators of somebody that's supposed to be a registered sex offender?
Somebody dropped the ball. Joe was kept in the dark. He didn't know anything about this guy's past. We didn't know anything about this guy's past until yesterday when it started popping up. And we're learning more and more about it in real time right now on the interviews you're doing, that people that knew about it, but yet for months and kept it privileged to their little circle and didn't tell Joe anything about it.
I imagine it might have been new information tonight that this sex offender had hired an actress to tell your ex-wife and the mother of your kids that there was no sex offense at all, that she was the pretend victim and that it was all a misunderstanding.
I never knew Holly found out anything, and I never knew about a lie. I never knew about portraying nothing. I never knew about any of it.
When they found out what the public record was, and they knew that he was a sexual offender, and they knew that he had been in jail for all those years for rape, somebody should have told this man so he could protect his daughter and his kids. All three is his kids.
What would you like, Joe? What would you like us to all know about all three of those kids, Riley, Michael, and your daughter, Tiffany?
Well, they were taken from me too soon, but the best moments of my life. My oldest Riley was amazing, great artist. All the time asking if she could just draw me something. My son, always excited about showing me a new video game and talking for hours about video games and engineering and building this and building that. My youngest, straight A student, most amazing, sweet, kind person. Doesn't matter where I'm at, what I'm doing, she'll come running and jump in my arms. Daddy,
Track
and I'll
star,
never get it again.
daddy's girl, track star. Fun-loving kids, man. Fun-loving, good kids. It's
We're
a shame.
looking at the pictures. We're looking at the pictures of them, and they really are beautiful children. And I am just so sorry, Joe, for your loss. My heart goes out to you tonight, and I hope you learn more information from the authorities in the coming days. And Sonny, thank you for being there for Joe, for his moral support. Again, our thoughts and our prayers are with you tonight, both of you. Thank you for doing this.
It's crazy. It is so heartbreaking, you know, and he was kept out of the loop. Nobody told him anything. You know, he had no clue. And then to just hear about this and learn more and more every day. I mean, it is gut wrenching. It is just so sad. Okay. Hold on. Sorry. I'll pull up this next one. Okay. Now let's hear from the police.
In Oklahoma, 7 bodies found on a rural property. We're learning more about what may have led up to this. How did police come across 7 bodies after what started as a search for 2 teens? Let's bring you this update from earlier today in Oklahoma.
Is everybody ready? Good afternoon. My name is Joe Prentice, and the spelling is Joeprentice. I am police chief for the city of Okmulgee, and I also command the District 25 Violent Crime Task Force. With me is Carol Iskey, our district attorney, who sponsors the Violent Crime Task Force, and Sheriff Eddie Rice, who was one of the reporting agencies when this investigation started. I've got a brief statement that I'll read, and then I'll open it for questions and answer the questions that I can. As you know, Ivy Webster was reported missing to the Okmulgee County Sheriff's Office, and Brittany Brewer was reported missing to the Henryetta Police Department on Monday morning. I received a request shortly after to activate the Violent Crime Task Force. The task force began the investigation, and as part of that, obtained a search warrant for the property on Holly Road. Because of the extremely large size of the property, we requested assistance from the OSBI. During the search, the bodies of 7 individuals were recovered. All were sent to the medical examiner for autopsies, and those examinations have been completed. Scientific identification has been obtained on all 7 of the individuals, and I have information regarding their injuries. That being said, it is important to remember that all of this information is extremely preliminary, and no official reports from the medical examiner's office have been issued. The injuries include Ivy Webster suffered 1 gunshot wound to the head. Brittany Brewer suffered 1 gunshot wound to the head. Riley Allen suffered 1 gunshot wound to the head. Tiffany Guess suffered 2 gunshot wounds to the head. Michael Mayo suffered 2 gunshot wounds to the head. Holly McFadden suffered 3 gunshot wounds to the head. And Jesse McFadden appears to have shot himself in the head. Assisting the Violent Crime Task Force with the search, the crime scene, and the investigation were the following agencies: the Okmulgee County Sheriff's Office, the Henryetta Police Department, Henryetta Fire Department, OSBI, ATF, and the Muskogee Nation AG's office. That concludes my statement. I will answer any questions that I can.
Chief, when do you believe that these killings happened?
I don't know. Based on the investigation, we believe that the girls were spotted in Henryetta on Saturday night. Beyond that, I can't tell.
Were the victims found in one spot?
No.
Whereabouts were they found?
Ivy, Brittany, and Riley were found separately, approximately 150 to 150 yards apart from each other, and approximately a quarter of a mile southeast of the McFadden residence.
Do we think they ran away?
I don't have any evidence to indicate that, but there's no way to know.
And the other 2 victims?
Well, there's more than just 2 more. The other 4 decedents were found together approximately 450, 500 yards east and a little bit south of where the 3 girls were found, and they were all together.
Was anyone able to call 911?
As far as I know, there was no 911 call made.
And do we believe that all these killings happened around the same time?
I don't have any evidence to indicate otherwise.
Chief, what led you guys to getting that search warrant? Because Emmy's office was there immediately with you guys when you guys were doing that. Was there, you guys got to the property that morning because he was the person you're looking for and stumbled across something and then back out like normal and ask for a search warrant?
Something very similar. That morning, deputies and task force members went out to the property in an effort to see if there was anyone there. While at the property, they got no response at the door, and they observed what they believed was a freshly disturbed area of dirt in the yard or the curtilage area around the residence. They came back and reported that, and we got a search warrant for the residence and the property.
Have you traced back this gun?
I'm sorry, one at a time.
Very similar questions. Have you traced back this gun, and how did McFadden get the gun, and what kind of firearm was it?
We did conduct an e-trace on the firearm. It was a 9mm handgun, and it was purchased in January of 2022 by Holly McFadden.
When you were talking about disturbed dirt, are you talking about graves, for lack of a better way to put it?
That's what the concern was when it was observed. We have since discovered that the property owner, who is not the McFaddens were renting. The property owner had cleaned out a horse pen and had dumped that debris there.
So they didn't see a body and then back out?
No.
There weren't graves dug or anything?
No. No.
We believe he executed.
Did McFadden leave a note?
I'm sorry?
Did McFadden leave a note?
No note was found.
Do we believe that he executed them?
I don't know that I would use the term executed. I believe that McFadden shot all of the other decedents.
Did the victims have any defensive wounds or anything?
I didn't observe any. I haven't had any reported to me from the medical examiner's office, but I would caution you and remind you that this information is extremely preliminary.
Any other trauma to the body?
One at a time.
Overall, what do you make of this situation? Family members tell us they believe this person planned this. What do you make of this? I'm guessing you've never dealt with anything like this before.
Several questions there. I follow the evidence. All right. And the evidence is that Jesse McFadden murdered 6 people and then killed himself. Beyond that, I don't know what his thought process was. Whether he planned this, and if he did, how long, I don't have any evidence to base an opinion one way or the other on that.
Was anyone tied up?
No.
Was there any other apparent trauma to the bodies other than these gunshot wounds?
None that I observed, but again, it's really early, and I haven't gotten anything from the medical examiner's office.
There was a text message sent to Ivy's parents Sunday night that was odd, they said. Do we believe that was sent by Jesse?
I'm not sure I know what text message you're talking about, so I can't comment intelligently.
Were there any signs of a fight?
I didn't observe any, no.
What's your theory of motive?
I don't think I want to speculate. I'm not gonna express a theory because, again, I follow the evidence and I don't have any evidence to indicate what the actual motive was. And I'm going to be honest with you folks. Normal people that understand care, love, compassion wouldn't understand if I could come up with it anyway.
Chief, what kind of impact does this have on law enforcement? I mean, this is now 2 weirdly similar cases that you've had to deal with in just the last 6 months.
Law enforcement is pretty resilient, and we know what we signed up for, and we play the hand that's dealt us. So when we get a call, we go. And with regard to how anyone is responding to it since the event, I don't have any indication that anybody's having any difficulties. We are conducting the follow-up investigation, which is doing some cleanup interviews and documenting everything that we discovered, just like we do in any other case.
Have you heard from other parents, other teenagers? We heard possibly that more teenagers were divided.
I don't have any information along those lines. That's first I've heard of it.
Do we think he planned this?
I don't know.
Do we know if they were doing anything when the killings happened, like an activity of some sort outside?
Wasn't anything obvious.
Do you think he acted alone?
Don't have any evidence to indicate that there was anybody else involved.
Other than McFadden's rape conviction and his pending child porn charges, did he have any more recent run-ins with law enforcement that would act as warning signs?
Not that I'm aware of. Absent his lengthy prison sentence and his Muskogee County case.
How well did you know this person? I'm assuming was he on the sex offender registry? Is this someone?
Are we talking about Jesse McFadden? I personally did not know him. My understanding is he was a registered sex offender and was up to date on his registration.
So you guys had no prior calls to this house before this incident?
My agency would not have had any. The task force doesn't, as a matter of business, take calls for service. I would defer to the sheriff with that, and I would say that I am unaware of any others.
Chief, you said all the victims suffered gunshot wounds to the head. Did they come from the back or the front?
Some were to the side of the head, some were in the back of the head. There were injuries in the front of the head. So I would defer to the medical examiner for a firm answer on that. The short answer is I don't know for sure.
I know you're unsure of when exactly it happened. Is there any reason to believe that he did this and then waited a while and then killed himself later on?
Again, I follow the evidence. I don't have any evidence to indicate that. Anything is possible.
Do you have any time? How long do you think they were at that residence? Were they there?
Sorry, y'all. I just wanted to pause that for 1 second. So at this point, we are 3 days in. They currently don't have a time of death for anybody. Every time he is asked a question, I can't answer that. I don't know the answer to that. I don't have the evidence to support that. I follow the evidence. But you keep saying you follow the evidence, but what evidence? I mean, you guys didn't collect any of the evidence. I mean, we're following the evidence. That's what we're doing, but I just, I can't answer that. I don't have the answers for that. Oh, I can't say. Oh, I'm not sure on that yet. Oh, we don't know about that yet. The lack of caring, I don't know if it's like, I don't know, okay, if these cops are they just not, like, are small town cops just not trained to handle a crime scene of this magnitude? Because I kind of feel like that should be like basic training for a cop. I feel like if you're going to be a police officer, you should have to be trained on, in case you have to deal with a crime scene, on how to control and do all this in a crime scene. So it just seems, I mean, it's not just me. We can see that this was not handled correctly. We can see that everybody wants to pass the buck. We can see that answers don't want to be, or questions don't want to be answered directly. And now again, listen, I'm not a hater. I'm not a defund the policer. Okay. I am not one of those people. I am all for law enforcement when they do their job correctly. But when this is put out to the public and this is put out to us, and you can see that nothing was done right, and all of this is just wrong. I mean, of course you question that. Of course you say, listen, things aren't right here, guys. So that's all I'm saying. But it just seems like that you never get any direct answers, you know? Okay.
Gone all weekend. We showed up that Monday. We have any idea how long they were?
My understanding is the girls were friends with Tiffany, who lived at the residence, and were allowed to go and spend the night with her on Saturday, and were supposed to come home Sunday. And when they didn't, they were reported missing. Beyond that, I don't have any information.
What were the ages of all the victims?
Bear with me. I knew there was a document I needed to bring with me. Tiffany was 13.
Ivy was 14.
Michael was 15. Riley was 17. Ivy was 14. Brittany was 16. Holly was 35, and Jesse McFadden was 39.
Just to confirm, the three, Riley, Tiffany, and Michael were all Holly's kids, not Jesse's.
That is my understanding, yes.
So these were his stepkids?
Yes.
Did he make any recordings on his phone of his deeds or try to post anything to social media that you can determine?
We recovered one phone from the residence that we believe is Holly's. We recovered pieces of a phone from a wooded area quite a ways from the residence. We do not know who it belonged to. If that's not his phone, we haven't located his phone.
Any other significant pieces of evidence other than those phones, the guns, and of course the bodies?
We took some other evidence, but nothing I'm willing to comment on.
Is there any indicator that any of the victims were drugged or anything?
Not that I'm aware of.
With the 4 family members being found together, did they appear to be sleeping?
Without going into a lot of detail, that scene appeared to be staged to me. And that is my opinion based on what I observed.
Staged as in the bodies?
I don't want to go into details. I think the bodies had been moved from where they were originally killed.
Were they all found outside?
Yes.
Okay.
But they weren't killed at the same time. I mean, some were killed at one occasion, and just given the distance you're talking about, and then traveled somewhere else.
Well, there's no way we can know with certainty, but logic tells me that some were killed in an area 400 to 450 yards away from others. So yeah, there would have been some space of time there. Yes, sir.
Yes. Are you certain about McFadden's sex register or sex offender registry status? We attempted to look him up and didn't find him there.
I am certain of what I've been told. I have not checked it myself.
Are you certain of Brittany Brewer's age? I was told by your father that she was 15.
No, I am not certain. That information was provided to me early on. I made a note of it, and I am not 100% certain of that.
I spoke with a former victim of his who was set to testify against him and the trial he was supposed to be on Monday. And he sent her text messages or Facebook messages the night previous. Have you spoken with her? Do you know anything about those messages?
We have. We've received copies of those text messages. He did make contact with her, and it was a Facebook Messenger message, and tried to lay blame for his situation on her.
So do you believe that the killings happened prior or after those messages?
I don't have any way to know that.
You're the district attorney, correct? And
That's
this person was supposed to have a jury trial Monday?
That was in Muskogee County, correct?
Is that your
No.
jurisdiction?
No, I'm a Bogie and McIntosh.
So the text messages were blaming the victim for what he had done to these 6 people.
No. My interpretation of the Facebook Messenger messages that I read was he was blaming her for his situation with the criminal case in Muskogee County.
Why is Okmulgee police on this instead of Henryetta?
Well, first of all, the scene was outside of the city limits of either Henryetta or Okmulgee and would fall under the jurisdiction of the sheriff's office. Okmulgee Police is involved because we are part of, and I in fact command, the District 25 Violent Crime Task Force, which conducts violent crime investigations in both Okmulgee and McIntosh County.
Again, with the timeline, I'm sorry, I know you don't have a lot of details, but can you give us an idea of how far apart these killings could be or if they all happened at once?
I don't have any way to base any speculation on to give you a realistic timeline other than the distance between where the bodies were discovered. It could have happened in quick succession, or there could have been a significant amount of time between them. There's just absolutely no way for us to know.
I know you mentioned it already, but I'm just trying to get clarification. Can you explain again where the bodies were found and how close they were? It kind of sounds like maybe 3 were found close together and then the other 4 were found like 2 different groups.
Yes, that's correct. From the McFadden residence, which is probably 100 yards off the road, approximately a quarter mile south and east of the residence, there is a creek. And the creek is within a tree line, but just barely. Ivy was found on the west side of that creek, approximately 100 to 150 yards away. Brittany was found. Approximately another 100 to 150 yards away, Riley was found, and they were both on the east side of the creek. Then the other 4 decedents were all found together approximately another quarter mile more east than south, but southeast of where the 3 girls were found in a heavily wooded area.
So they were found further away.
Yes.
Chief, what kind of impact does a tragedy like this have on the community?
Well, part of the problem that the community suffers with something like this is everybody wants to understand why. And like I said before, normal people can't understand why. People that perpetrate crimes like this are evil. And normal folks like us can't understand why they do that. So I think that besides the emotional trauma that people suffer because of the realization of what happened to these young kids, trying to figure out why is a challenge they'll never get past.
Was there anybody at the scene before all this happened that you've been able to determine who wasn't killed, or everybody who was there?
I have no evidence that anyone was at the scene leading up to the murders that was not killed.
Do you have any information? Was his residence recently searched, probation, parole? Was he in compliance, et cetera?
I don't have any information at all along those lines.
Were the bodies found with clothing, or they were all normal?
All bodies were clothed.
I know I think this was asked, but I'm just gonna ask again, please. I mean, 6 people to shoot and kill. Do you think that the 3 girls maybe were trying to run away? Any indicator that anyone tried to run away? That just seems like so many people to try and do that to without someone getting away.
You're having the same difficulty that we have trying to figure out exactly what happened, because all we have is where the bodies were positioned and the injuries to them to try to indicate what happened. And there's just no way to know.
Do you think that this was planned or spontaneous?
No way to know that.
And what is the district attorney's role in this? Now that
This is my task force.
okay.
It's been reported Jesse McFadden was going to go to McAllister. Do you have any, before this happened, do you have an indication that actually happened, or he was not seen, or any evidence about that?
Based on information that we have available to us currently, we don't think they ever went to McAllister.
How did you all figure out that they didn't ever go to McAllister?
The property in McAllister belongs to Jesse McFadden's family members, and we interviewed them, and they were cooperative and told us that they had never come down there. They hadn't come down there that weekend.
Were there any security or gaming cameras on the property that possibly could have captured anything?
Not that I've been made aware of.
Do we know when he dropped the car to his neighbor? I mean, when was the last sighting of him?
I believe he was sighted in Henryetta proper Saturday night. When I can't tell you when he dropped the car or why. Anything I tell you, be a guess. All right, folks. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. And
thank you.
Can I ask one more question? I'm
Sure.
sorry. Typically when there's homicides, murders, someone goes on trial. This someone is now deceased. What's next in this investigation to figure out what happened to bring families closure? What's next?
we have been in contact with the families and have shared information. In fact, we met with the families today prior to this press conference to give them the information that we gave you all, so they would hear it from us and not from the news media. Again, there are questions that will never get answered because the only people that know are no longer here. We will continue to document everything that we have found and anything that we discover in follow-up interviews moving forward and generate a report. We will submit that report to the district attorney's office for her review as a formality because there is no prosecution to be had here.
Can you describe the reaction of the families when this information was given?
Today, I was not present, so I'm not sure. Yes, sir.
What was I saying? Just for the purposes of our understanding, do you think you might be able to help us out and give and present some type of like map of like the crime scene that might help us better explain for people how spread out the crime scene was?
Currently, I don't have one for you. At some point in the future, crime scene investigators will map it. I have no idea how long that'll take.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
At this point, has the case been ruled as a murder-suicide?
We don't ever just rule a case, to use your term, but we don't have any evidence to believe that it's anything other than 6 murders and a suicide.
Thank you, Chief.
In closing, what's your message to parents? This has affected so many people. We've heard from victims' families, got no idea this person's convictions, previous history. What's your message? And it sounds like I don't know if it was easily available out there. What's your message to parents you see this?
I want to be clear. All right. I do not believe that the parents of Brittany or Ivy did anything wrong, and they are devastated by the loss of their children. That being said, I don't think you can be too careful with your kids. Know where they're going and who they're going to be with. All right, folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, he seemed to not be able to answer any questions. He really didn't give us any information. I mean, it did seem to be a very, how do I want to say this? It did seem to be a very uninformative press conference. Okay. Yeah, we see why we don't know yet. That's what I'm saying. They don't even know that because, but again, like the cops didn't even collect that. The family did, and the aunt is the one who untaped it, and she untaped the holds from the back of the dresser. She's also the one who went under the floorboards and found toddler clothes with still wet blood on them. That's what I'm saying. Like it was, and you wonder, like, how did the family, what led the family to be to going under the floorboards? Like, was there one board out of, you know what I'm saying, where you could like tell, okay, something, this is a lift board. It's just, I don't know. There's still a lot of questions. Okay. Let me get to, okay. Well, I think that's why they have the divers out there in the pond. That's why they have the excavators out there. I think, now they're going, okay, well, now we really got to look. Yes, and don't forget, excuse me, that they had a whole bookshelf of witchcraft books. Crazy. All right. Sorry, let me mute that.
You learn a lot about somebody if you are locked up with them for 16 months in a cell, just the two of you. You'll learn a lot. You can either really like that person or you can come to really hate that person. And it sounds as though the person who was locked up with Jesse McFadden, that name is familiar because he just killed his entire family and 2 kids who were sleeping over. All 7 bodies found dumped on his sex offender ranch, that's his registered address, in Oklahoma. And now his former cellmate is speaking out. To be clear, his former cellmate was not in for the same filthy charges that Jesse McFadden was in for. Jesse McFadden was in for criminal rape. He raped a 15-year-old at knife point. And while he was in, he had a contraband phone, and he was actually looking up naked pictures of kids, and he was charged with that. And on the day that he committed those murders of his entire family and those other 2 kids, he was supposed to be in court for that second offense. That didn't happen. James Fleming was his cellmate, was not in for any kind of sexual offense, let me be clear. But he certainly knew Jesse McFadden well, knew him personally, ended up sharing a 2-man prison cell with that rapist, mass murderer, for more than a year. Again, clear. James Fleming was not incarcerated for any sex-related or violent crime, but he joins me live now. James, thank you so much for being on. I'm sure all of this comes as an absolute shock. Can you give me some insight as to the person who Jesse McFadden was, the person you knew?
So when I first met Jesse, he just seemed like a normal, clean cut, another inmate, another convict. But, as we moved in together and we shared a cell, it's about, I would say about 6 months into it, I just realized how weird he was. His conversations would always turn into sexual conversations. He was just a very awkward guy. I caught him, stalking nurses down at the medical facilities. He was just your very, very awkward, weird person.
There was some report that he had actually assaulted someone in the prison as well.
I don't know. I'm not sure about him assaulting anybody in the prison. It might have been before I knew him.
Okay. While you had, you say that you never were at ease, that you slept with one eye open. Tell me about that.
Oh, definitely. So about 6 months into our, living arrangement, he came out and told me that he was in prison for rape. Of course, he justified it. He gave me his side of the story, which I found out later was not true. But, at the same time, he's telling me that, his first rape offense was like statutory, I guess you would call it, like a 18-year-old and a 17-year-old girl and her parents found out or whatever. But, I'm sitting there thinking about it while he's telling me, and I'm just like, man, you don't get 20 years for that, a statutory rape charge. You get 20 years for something very serious and very violent. So he knew that I knew that he was full of crap, And so after that day, just the demeanor in our cell changed. And unfortunately, in Oklahoma, you can't move out of a cell. Once you're in there with somebody, you're stuck. Unless you fight them or you get in trouble, you're stuck with them. So I was stuck. And I definitely was very uneasy. You know, when you're locked in there with somebody at night, you can't get out. Nobody can hear you if you guys are fighting or you know, anything. And so I always had to look over my back. I always had to sleep with one eye open, definitely.
Were you angry that he was let out of his sentence 3 years early, ultimately still facing similar kinds of charges of child pornography?
Well, yeah, of course. You know, we stopped being cellmates in 2015, and even throughout the rest of my incarceration, and then whenever I got out of prison, I kept up with him. I was looking on the Oklahoma State Court Network to see when he was going to have to face, you know, the charges that he got while he was at that other prison. I was, you know, looking up to see where he lived. That's how I found out him and Holly got married. I was looking up to see, you know, if he had faced these charges that he was accused of, that he was guilty of. And I saw their marriage certificate, and it just blew my mind. I don't know why they would let him out of prison, why they didn't just take him straight to county jail and await those charges.
And I know you're upset because you reached out to police to, you know, let them know that this was a registered sex offender, and it was nerve-wracking that you couldn't even see where he was registered. And then ultimately after the killings, you let them know how upset you were. The one thing that I just want to let our viewers know about is that you actually had quite a deep connection to Holly, his wife, who he just murdered, along with her 3 kids and their 2 friends. That you used to be a pen pal of hers when you were incarcerated. She told you that that she loved him, or she told you that she loved you. And then on February 20th and February 21st, you had this text exchange with her, still as a friend, saying, "Hey," and she texted back, "Hi, how are you?" And you said, "Doing great, finally enjoying my life. You know, I see you have a different last name." And then she says, "Yeah, me and Jesse got married." And you say, "How are the kids?" And she says, "They're great and huge, LOL." So clearly you had a good relationship with her. This must be devastating, this news that not only Holly, but her 3 children are dead.
Yeah, I just feel like this definitely should not have happened. It definitely should have been avoided. After I had that text exchange with her, I contacted the police department where their married out of the city where their marriage certificate was listed as, and of course he wasn't on the sex offender registry. So I contacted them. I say, "Hey, there's an offender in your area. He's not on the registry." They say, "Well, the state has a public list." And I went and checked that list, couldn't find him. Got back to him, said, "Hey, you know, this guy's a predator. He has multiple offenses," you know, just trying to warn him, just wanted to say something. You know, I couldn't say much to her because I didn't know if he read her text messages. I didn't want him to see them and hurt her, you know, the exchanges between us. I just wanted to keep it, you know, straight, you know, friendly. But, you know, when I reached out to the law enforcement and they didn't get back with me, I was just like, you know, what the heck, man? This could have been avoided. This could have been avoided.
It's confounding. Jesse is he was a monster without question. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television.
Okay, so that was a former cellmate of Jesse's, and even he knew what kind of lunatic he was. Okay. Sassafras, exactly. Dump them off. I'm with ya. All right, let's move on to this next one.
Nathan, thank you for being here. And again, I am just so sorry for what you and the other family members are all going through at this time. Have the authorities shared any other details of this crime with you all?
No, not at this time. They're still, I know after the day, they found some more findings, and so they're still processing the scene.
And have they been helpful? Have they kept you in the loop at least? Do you feel that you're being respected in terms of your need for more knowledge of what happened?
For the most part, they have. I know at the beginning, I was getting most of my information through social media.
Well, that just feels heartbreaking. I know that you went to the scene yourself. What did you discover there?
Well, it was actually me and my wife that went out there. My wife had said, my wife calls it more of like a horror scene. I see it something more of out of a Criminal Minds segment.
How so? What do you mean? What did you witness?
Just the way that things were in there. I mean, it's just straight. I mean, just, I don't know, the rooms, the way the rooms were set up. I mean, everything in there, it just was just horrendous.
Are you referring to the rooms of Jesse McFadden's home on that property? We were under the understanding that the
Yes.
bodies had been found from the sheriff. They told us that the bodies had been found out on the property.
Right. Well, that's it. On that part, you're right. We did actually go out there where the bodies were found laying. They told us exactly where to find where to go, exactly where to go to find the areas where the bodies were. So we were able to walk right straight to it. And on that part, there was no signs of any blood or nothing like that. But in the house, it's just the way things were laid out and things was just something that was just unbelievable for a parent
Anything
to even
specific?
see, to even go through this.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Well, I don't really want to go into too much detail, but it's just something that was not right.
Is there anything that you've been told by the authorities not to share with us, or anything that you don't want to share with the public?
There's no, the authorities didn't really have anything not to share with it, but a lot of things I didn't really wanted to really come out with the public on some of the things because it's just out of respect to my daughter and the other victims.
I understand. You are making plans now for funeral and memorial. Can you tell us what you're doing?
Yes, right now it's planned for the funeral on Wednesday Wednesday the 10th at 2:00 at the high school gym here in Henryetta, and she's going to be taken from there to the cemetery on a horse-drawn carriage.
Nathan, our thoughts are with you, and I am so sorry for what you and the other families have lost. Thank you for sharing this part of the story with us, and the best of luck to you as you
You're
go through
welcome.
this process. Thank you for watching. Go
Yeah, it is just gruesome. It is terrible what this family has had, what these families have had to go through. And it all could have been prevented if they didn't let that sick human being out of prison. Sorry, y'all. Give me just 1 second. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, I think people that commit these crimes against children, I'm not even going to say. I'm not even going to say what I think should happen. All right. let's just move on because I want to get you guys as much information as I can. So like I said, we had started from the very first, working our way up to now.
Brian, I have a range of emotions. I'm distressed that the families had to experience that horror and then had to encourage the police to please come back, investigate, and actually take this evidence. But even more so, I think I am concerned about potential other victims that may have been raped or murdered in that home. And it doesn't seem like that is an issue.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. And my first thought was like these poor parents with everything they've gone through, losing their daughter, now like touring the crime scene, this untouched crime scene where these hellish activities clearly happen. So, I mean, my heart just goes out to them. I can't imagine what they're going through. But what you mentioned, I mean, there's two other things that stand out to me. Number one, you know, could there be other victims? Could there be child pornography victims on those computers? Why wouldn't investigators take the computers and go through them? There could be other victims out there. Why would they just leave the computers there? And then number two, this sick pedophile, twisted pervert, how do we know he didn't have other men over to this sex den? I mean, clearly they had the shackles. This is a place that was set up and had been there for a while, it appears. How do we know there aren't other men involved in other things that happened there in the past? And why wouldn't police want to go through that entire house from top to bottom, fingerprints, looking for everything? I mean, yes, he might be dead, but could there be other people out there that did awful, awful things in that house?
Or missing women, missing children whose DNA may be on that mattress, maybe everywhere throughout that house, maybe on the restraints or in the needle. There could be a trove of evidence of potential unsolved crimes there. The other thing that was disturbing, I don't know if you noticed it, but on the wall there was like a crossword puzzle of all the family members' names, including Jesse's and Holly's, his wife, and then the children, Riley, Michael, and Tiffany. And it seemed as though it was a family home, but then it was just mixed in with this horrible sex dungeon business, which also leads you to wonder if Holly did know, because those parents questioned whether Holly knew something about this. And then there was that wedding ring sitting out there in the open, right next to the needles.
I mean, how could you not know? I mean, the shackles and the chains that were drilled into the floor next to the mattress in that one room. And then I think I saw chains drilled into the floor in the kitchen even. I mean, it's hard to imagine you wouldn't know what was going on in there unless this was all just set up recently and she hadn't seen it before. But it certainly, based on the video, looks like it's been there for a while.
It certainly does. Brian, don't go anywhere. There is a moment on these tapes that just is soul crushing, because while standing in the middle of all of these horrors where their girls potentially were drugged, raped, and died, just feet from the wall restraints and the drugged syringes, Ivy Webster's dad is so irate that police left all this evidence behind. He just lets the officer on scene have it.
What would this accomplish?
I'm a grieving parent that my daughter got raped and murdered, and you're telling me right now that I don't have a right to know what happened?
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television.
I mean, I gotta tell you, and this is just me. Had to sneeze. I gotta tell you that if a cop would have said that to me, and I was standing in there looking at everything that he was looking at, and this cop said to me, "Well, what would that accomplish? What would that accomplish?" I mean, they would have had to they'd have took me in. That's just how it would have been. I mean, crazy. I mean, to me, it seems like, why would you say that? Why would you say, well, what would that accomplish? I feel like an officer that really truly cared would have been like, sir, you are absolutely right. Like, somebody dropped the ball here for real. You know, we did. And you know, for him to just have that attitude, I'm, you know, makes me wonder. That's all I'll say. It makes me wonder. All right. So let's move on. It's so frustrating. All right, let me play this for you guys. For those of you that are just tuning in, thank you so much for being here. This is a crazy case. This is something like we have never seen. Please hit that thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. Anybody that wants to donate, links are all down in the description below. We have to spread the light. The darkness and the evil is clearly taking over. That's all we're trying to do here, okay?
I just want to give you this warning. They're about to take you on a tour through this home, and it is very, very uncomfortable, but you will learn a lot about this Jesse McFadden and what he may have done before killing those kids and his wife. Take a look.
Phone or phone case with like the screen ghost face on the back. Okay. I don't know.
There's a phone.
I don't know the answer. I don't care about the phone. Yeah, those are Tiffany skates.
Tiffany's bad print is the cow print.
And the cow slippers over here. Spells. Inner witch. Oh my God. What?
Sorry, y'all. Just wanted to pause that for 1 second. CY, thank you for the 7 months. I just wanted to say I love and appreciate all of you guys so much. Thank you for the membership. It's awesome.
On the floor over there.
This is a huge. I see this. Get the fuck up right here. What's this?
This is the room. Do you remember when they said that they were making Riley sleep on their bedroom?
All right, Athena, thank you so much for the $9.99 super chat. To understand what human trafficking is, see Eyes of the Devil on YouTube if you can bear it. Hope HT in Europe from babies to teenagers. Horrible. Athena, thank you. And I agree, this stuff really needs to be brought to light. It absolutely does. Thank you so much.
Floor. Where was she sleeping at? There is no room on that floor. And then here, come over here and here and watch that.
Give me something to grab.
Take a picture. Take pictures. It's on video.
That's them.
Hey,
that's them.
Okay.
Use this sack. Empty lock there.
No, those locks?
That's evidence too.
So is those drugs.
Is
that hers?
Yep.
Okay. Hold on.
Call the sheriff.
Yep.
Don't touch him. Don't move him.
Let's back out.
That's good.
Okay. I'm calling.
Smokey.
Are you done looking?
No.
No, I'm not done looking, but that's evidence.
Okay.
He used our daughter's cell phone.
And whatever's behind that.
Yep. Okay.
And they're not concerned about looking anywhere else.
This house needs to be stripped. Oh my God. Okay. Do me a favor.
No, that's what I was telling you.
But we touched everything today because we had permission from the sheriff. But we didn't touch the phones. But I was not in the state when this happened, so. Let's go.
So we're getting pictures of all this, honey. This man is a freaking monster. And his wife was too.
This one's my daughter's. I want to know what else is up here and in here. I think there's more. There's computers.
Some of these tablets. Well, did you notice the ring?
The ring?
See that ring? The wedding ring right there?
Oh, I thought you were saying camera. God, that would have been great.
This is on video.
Yeah, I'm just getting all the stuff up there.
Well, I mean, I didn't say too much of it.
Yeah,
but there's a big old machine too.
But that's a weapon. So
And it's in here with all this sexual paraphernalia.
And then those were right there. They obviously didn't look too hard.
No.
Look, is that another phone or what is that? Look, hey, that one's still on. That computer, whatever that tablet thing.
Yeah, it's on.
Not only that.
A syringe
Needles.
and needles. Oh my.
That's cocaine. It's gotta be.
So look.
Thank you for watching.
I mean, it is horrible. Those girls were drugged. They were sexually assaulted. They were held against their will. I mean, God only knows what those children went through. But guys, the biggest thing here is, and again, if you know me, you know I'm not like this, but the biggest thing here is is how cops acted and treated this scene. I get after how Kylie's case went, I understand why people are like, don't look at Ellie like that. Like, not all Ellie is like that. But I have never seen Ellie so, and I don't want to say incompetent, because I don't even believe that's the case. Like, I don't think this is a lack of training. I don't think this is a lack of, wanting to do your job. This to me seems so deliberate, how they did this and how they ran this. And it just seems to me like they were like, okay, we cannot let any of this evidence be collected. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to release the crime scene back to the family. We're going to tell the family they can go in there. They can do whatever they want. And then they will complain, but none of that evidence will be admissible. None of it. And that to me would make sense. That I can understand that. I can see how, you know what I'm saying? Like that, because just going in and not doing your job at all. Like this can't just be laziness. This has to be, okay, we can't let this stuff get out. How are we going to get around this? And that would work, right? I don't know. Silence said maybe this case terrifies the living shit out of Ellie and they are unwilling to deal with the consequences. See, I don't know. And again, this is open for, this is just my opinion. Don't go with what I say, you know, go with what you feel. But to me, it just seems like let's lay grounds for, I mean, to me, this looks like a cover up. To me, this looks like corruption. To me, this, and especially with, like I said, it would be different if the cops responded in a different way. But when they responded with the attitude that they had, like, come on, what good would that do? The only guy we can get answers from is dead. I don't believe that. And I don't believe the case died with him. Look at everything they have found. You know, like, you know, I keep going back to the toddler's clothes. Where is the, and the blood still being wet? Like, that was super recent. And they put it under the floorboards. I mean, I don't know, you guys. What do you guys think? If you guys, okay, let me do this. If you guys think that the cops intentionally screwed this up, put a 1 in the chat. If you guys think that they are just lazy and incompetent and not trained well, put a 2 in the chat. If you guys think this is something totally different, put a 3 in the chat. I just want to kind of see where everybody stands. All right. Okay, now this was 3 days ago. OSBI takes over the Henryetta Massacre investigation.
We have new developments into the investigation into the massacre in Henryetta earlier this week. Thanks for joining us. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation has taken over the investigation and is right now at the property where the 6 people were killed. They say the murderer is a convicted rapist who killed himself after the murders. 2 News Oklahoman's Samson Tamajani joins us live from the scene. Samson, what are the agents telling you?
Yeah, Shay, since we got on scene this afternoon, we've witnessed several OSBI investigators throughout the front yard and at the house of Jesse McFadden. Only 1 agent left the scene earlier tonight, but they have since come back. As you can see behind me, we now have the front yard lit with the light from the OSBI Mobile Analysis Center bus as work for them continues into the night. Now, during the daytime, we saw several family members of the victims and 2 people we didn't recognize talking with OSBI members as they collected items from a silver Toyota Yaris. OSBI was also seen taking photos of other vehicles in the yard, like this U-Haul and the trailers over to our left. Investigators have also been entering and exiting the home. And just to put this all into context, 2 News anchor Aaron Christie reported the last couple days that this house where Jason McFadden lived was seemingly completely left alone by Okmulgee County Sheriff deputies with literal loads of potential evidence still inside. That includes numerous cell phones, sex paraphernalia, chains, handcuffs, drug paraphernalia, computers, all of which McFadden kept inside the house. Family members say they were told by the property owner here to get whatever they thought was important out of the house by Sunday, or it would be tossed into a dumpster. The Okmulgee County DA office didn't explain any of this and only said Friday that they were, quote, investigating. Now, less than 24 hours after we aired that story, as Shay mentioned, OSBI confirms that it has taken over this investigation, that the investigation is currently ongoing as of today. I spoke to an OSBI spokesperson earlier today and asked him several questions, including if the crime scene had now been contaminated since so many people have been through the house and since so much of the evidence has been potentially taken out and before many of it could be collected inside. I also asked if those items removed by family members would have to be returned and if the investigation itself they consider is mishandled. But spokesperson said that the agency cannot answer any of those questions at this time. Also, this evening, I spoke with several neighbors and family members who were just passing by, looking on just as we were. They told us that they are furious. They told us that they want answers from local and state authorities as to what might have been missed before and after these shootings even occurred. We'll, of course, be keeping you posted and with all the updates that we hear on air, online, and on our 2 News app. For now, live in Okmulgee County tonight, Samson Tamajani, 2 News, Oklahoma.
Thank you, Samson. Before OSBI showed up today in Okmulgee County, the community there gathered to celebrate the life of one of the victims, 14-year-old Ivy Webster. At least 300 people packed the back lot of the property owned by the Webster family for a memorial service, the first of this week's massacre victims to be laid to rest. A relative of the Websters described to us the lasting token of love from today's service. It was a giant flower arrangement forming a heart made by friends of Ivy's. The relative told us the family plans to lay it around the family swing that Ivy used to play on, a reminder of her blossoming smile that touched all who knew her. We have new developments into the investigation into the massacre in Henryetta early.
Yes, justice for the innocent, punishment for the guilty. I hope they are. I hope they are looking into that storage facility. Because you never know with these people. You never know what you could find in there. More evidence, you never know. All right, let's get through these. Sorry, guys. Okay, now this is from the pastor in town.
Unfortunately, as we mentioned in there, this is not the first time we've had to gather like this. We've had multiple years of tragedy. This is, one of 3 or 4 or 5 that we can count of. I'm from Dewar. That's where I pastor, and we've, buried lots of young people over the last couple of years. And sadly, this is one of the tragedies that we have come together tonight to, first of all, just say, God help us. God, who provides everything for us, knows everything. He's sovereign, and our goal is just to let this family know, multiple families, that we're going to be there for them and with them, and not let them slip through the cracks. And the reality is they're just beginning a journey that's going to be very difficult. 7 individuals have died tonight or today, and that's hard to comprehend. We're all still trying to determine what to do with this. It would be a tragedy. It is a tragedy with one individual, but it is catastrophic when you have 7 individuals, 5, from what I understand, 5 students that are just from this school that are facing this. At times, it's great that we know a lot of people. These small towns do come together, and the connections are there. One family, whether it's a church family or relative, is connected to another family. So small. Unfortunately, as we mentioned in there, this is not the first time we've had to gather like this. We've had, if you know them or not, our job is to take whoever it is that's going through whatever it is and being there for them, right? So Jesus said, I'd leave the 99 to go after the one. And so we left what is normal and go after whoever it is that needs whatever tonight. So.
Okay. Thank you, babe. All right, let's go on to this next one. We're getting through it, guys. But I think this is all important. I think, let's go through everything we know so far, because there's just so much that keeps coming out. and this family definitely deserves answers, for sure. I mean, how this was handled is wrong, 100%. Okay.
The police had no interest in taking the evidence, none, until they did. And then the cavalry came with excavators and divers and all the rest. But why didn't they care in the beginning? A week ago, when family members were discovering the horrors inside that home where their children were murdered, and maybe others, and certainly where other children may have been molested, abused, or worse. When they asked one of the investigators last week, why on earth is this so hard? Why are you not collecting this stuff? The response that came from the investigator was, well, what good would it do? You know, they're all dead anyway, right? The perpetrator's dead anyway. Hey, don't take it from me. Here it is. They actually captured it on tape. Listen.
What would this accomplish?
I'm a grieving parent that my daughter got raped and murdered. And you're telling me right now that I don't have a right to know what happened?
Just a quick glance at the horrors in that house tell, you know, the untrained eye that something horrible happened in that house, and probably not the first time. I want to bring in Robin Dreek. He's a retired FBI special agent and head of the counterintelligence behavioral analysis program with the FBI. Robin, I am shocked to hear a law enforcement representative say, what would this accomplish anyway? You know, the only guy who knows what happened here had a bullet in his head. Nothing more to see here. It just defies logic, seeing something that sophisticated as a sex torture chamber, that it's really the first and only time it happened.
It's the most shocking thing I've ever seen in law enforcement. I from the moment that the chief gave his press conference a couple of days ago before it to that officer's statement, what you're seeing is a pattern of language of what I call resignation, which is what people do in the language they go to when they feel a lack of control, they feel external pressures, they feel a sense of helplessness. So for some reason, from the top down, this department seems to have given up. I mean, someone needs to go in and do something right very fast to restore public trust and confidence in them, because the entire thing's a disaster. I've never seen anything like it.
Well, they were there with the Oklahoma Bureau of Investigation finally today with the excavators and the dive teams, et cetera, at a pond that was only created 2 months ago, shall we be clear. I'm assuming they're going to start cross-referencing all the missing kids in this vicinity and maybe all of Oklahoma or farther. In the meantime, we already get the feeling, given the sophistication of this operation that was in that house, that there may be more children. There were ledgers with children's names. There was a 4-inch stack of Polaroids of children, some of them naked, in sexually compromising positions, we are told. What is the chance, though, Robin, that there might be more perpetrators? Meaning there might be people out there that need to be arrested and prosecuted alongside, you know, the crimes of the dead Jesse McFadden.
Huge. I'd put it at almost 100%. You know, I used to work as a board member for a group called Innocent Lives Foundation. And one of the things that we did was we actually researched using cyber technology and to uncover all these types of pedophiles. And one pedophile like this can be linked to 600 to 600 different children, all that are networked into these other pedophiles. So the likelihood of finding other victims and other perpetrators, really high. They need to be on top of this right now. And to the poor people, the families involved, I haven't heard any mention yet, and I'm sure they're going to be doing it now, is victim assistance programs need to be involved right now to start taking care of the trauma that these families have been through. Because you're right, this is vast. I think there's going to be a lot of changes coming up in the leadership in this organizations.
Just a parade of horribles. Poor Lynn Watt at the beginning of this program saying on television, I need help processing this mentally. It's a tragedy on so many levels. Robin Dreek, will you come back this week? Because this is just unfolding and there's still a lot more to discuss.
That is crazy that they said, I mean, it could be connected to up to 600 children. I mean, that's crazy, crazy, crazy. Okay.
I can't even believe some of the things that I am reporting on, Brian. These are children, some of them toddlers, right there in full evidence. And it seems that every day we find out even more about this horrendous crime.
I'm very interested, Ashley, in the 32 cell phones you mentioned that are registered to that address. The addresses on the cell phone accounts, all 32 of them register back to that ranch address. What does that mean, especially when you bring in the fact that there are a high number of child sexual predators that live right in that area near where the ranch is? I mean, you put the pieces of the puzzle together, everything you've talked about that was found inside the house, the drugs, the pictures of young children in lewd positions, the chains that were tied up on the ground. It was clearly some kind of torture house. And then you wonder why cell phones would be registered there from 32 different people, and that there's this high number of sexual predators in the area. I think we're going to find out a lot more now that they're finally investigating all of this.
I'm going to ask you in a second, Brian, if you will read the letter that Jesse McFadden wrote to the judge, begging to get out of prison early, promising he was going to be such a good boy. I'm going to ask you that in a moment. And while you're getting that letter ready, I want to let our audience know what the Oklahoma newspaper has unearthed today about Jesse McFadden and his background, that he was a member of the Klan. In 2005, he told a corrections case manager not to house him any further with Black people. The records show, quote, "I was raised around the Klan. A lot of my family is Klan. I'm a racial person," he wrote. This according to the Oklahoma newspaper. They also are reporting the multiple sex offenses that he committed in prison. The first one in 2009, caught naked in his cell with another inmate. The next one in 2010, another inmate accused him of raping him. McFadden admitted to the sexual relationships with the inmate, disciplined internally. In 2013 and 2016, two separate offenses with a clandestine cell phone. And on that cell phone, child porn. He was standing trial for that, never made it to the first day of his actual case. And in another instance, he stole $80,000 from his own grandfather's safe. I mean, this is just an unbelievable, despicable human being. What is it that he said to the judge to try to convince the judge that he was nothing other than a despicable human being?
Yeah, so he wrote this letter, Ashley, trying to convince the judge to let him out of jail, despite everything you just read, admitting to raping and having another sexual relationship with an inmate in jail. He wrote this letter. I'm going to read it to you, to the judge. He said, "I do know that there is a lot of pain and suffering and that I was the cause of that pain. I sit and think about how I can change what I've done, but no matter how much I'd like to, there's no changing the past. So the future is all that's left to me. I'd like to get out and prove that I have changed and am a better person. I also have to take a drug rehabilitation class, even though it wasn't a program that was required because I had a problem with drugs and alcohol. When I can find a facility with a sex offenders course, I will be taking that also." So that was a letter to the judge, but remember his violent history in jail. And then I was thinking back to the roommate who you interviewed last week, who was in the cell with him, who said he had to sleep with one eye open. So clearly what he was writing to this judge was not reality.
Yeah, no kidding, because 7 people, him included, were found dead on that farm, and who knows if maybe others might be. Those excavators were brought in. Who knows what they unearthed? The ME is not reporting, not saying anything, and nor are the state authorities. Brian Enton, thank you for that. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
They had 32 cell phones connected to his address. My guess, 32 of people of his kind. Okay, let's just say that 32 people that shared his sickness. That's my guess. That's just my opinion. But 32. Seriously? And we're all supposed to be convinced that this is not some huge trafficking ring. that this is not, or not, I'm sorry, that this is not some huge type of ring. Let me say that. Crazy. This is crazy. And you heard it. This guy begging to get out of jail early. Are you kidding me? If you want my honest opinion, and you guys, this is not fact, this is just my opinion. He had help from the inside. He had help from higher ups, because how in the world, with his record, did he get released? How? And then not only did he get released, but he married a woman with 3 freaking children. 3 children. They had friends coming over. I mean, this is insane. He was a registered sex offender. Insane. Okay. All right. Now let's move on to his brother. Okay.
You've been hearing a whole lot about Jesse McFadden in the last week, the man who murdered his wife, her 3 kids, and 2 kids who came for a sleepover, and probably molested and maybe murdered many other children. Some of the children featured in photographs and ledgers found in his sex torture chamber home by family members of the victims, and then eventually by the police. And it turns out Jesse had a younger brother, still does, in prison, guy named Cody McFadden. And apple didn't fall far from Jesse's tree there. Cody McFadden has quite a rap sheet of his own, sadistic and violent crimes. Let's just run through them since 2010, shall we? Making meth, assault with a deadly weapon, battery, aggravated assault, arson, assaulting a doctor, assaulting a police officer, cruelty to animals. And just most recently, last summer, that's July of 2022, he locked his ex-girlfriend in a dog cage for an entire day. He tortured her. He beat her bloody with a stick to the point where there was blood on every part of her body. He reportedly used jumper cables to electrocute her. She escaped, and he set his house on fire in a standoff with the police. He's currently in jail on kidnapping and felony assault. And to prove how dangerous he is, he's on $1 million bond. $1 million bond. This is a guy who reported he had 0 assets, 0 income, that his entire employment was considered food stamps. A guy who has no money and gets $1 billion bond. That's a guy they don't want getting out. That's a dangerous, dangerous felon. And that's Jesse McFadden's dear brother. I want to bring in Robin Dreek. He's a retired FBI special agent who managed the Bureau's counterintelligence behavioral analysis program. Robin, first of all, let's just talk about Cody for a minute. How was a guy walking the streets as early as July of last year and able to commit that hideous and sadistic series of crimes against that girlfriend, that ex-girlfriend, with 15 years of violent criminal felony behavior? How was he walking the street last summer?
How's any of this happen, Ashley? This whole system down there right now is broken. As your last guest is saying, the former ADEC, he articulated perfectly. Everything down there needs to be redone and revamped, and you need to bring in outside people right now. The leadership needs to be shaken up massively. I can't explain any of this. It's just tragic, all of it, internally, externally, everything.
I feel like the FBI should be all over it, and the Oklahoma authorities should just pack up and head out, especially how they're treating the press, telling the family members, we're not their friends, don't speak to the press, and then denying us any transparency at all when we just asked for the warrant. The results of the warrant, please. In the same place you screwed up so massively for 9 straight days. Can't get that either. Our Freedom of Information request was denied. No reason given other than the law, which is baloney, and we know it. Okay, the other thing I needed to ask you about is looking at Cody McFadden as compared to Jesse McFadden. Is there such a thing as a bad gene? It's shocking to me to see this much sadistic criminal behavior among brothers.
So yes, I'll say it's always a blend of nature and nurture in situations. And clearly there's a lot of nature in here too, because lightning very rarely strikes twice to that degree genetically, but it couldn't happen. But definitely there's a lot of behaviors, and both these individuals have what I call reps. They had a lot of early reps in life and started with animal cruelty most likely, and started to abuse them, and they just kept escalating throughout their lives. And when you start feeding on that, and you're in a community that's feeding on that, and like I just learned on your show tonight, that there's a lot of other child offenders in the area, that is just a really bad situation where people are feeling safe to do really heinous crimes. And so that makes a recipe for disaster as well.
And that information came to us from the lawyer for Ivy Webster's parents. Ivy Webster, one of the sleepover children who had come for a slumber party and ended up murdered along with 6 others. The other question I have for you is it so far off to think that Cody may have engaged in any of the same criminal activities as his brother, given the fact that there was so much opportunity for Cody, who lived just around the corner and at one point lived in his mother's house with his brother when they were adults, so much opportunity for criminal behavior in that sickening farmhouse. Is it a stretch to think that maybe Cody might be involved as well?
I don't think it's a stretch at all. I mean, it makes sense. You have time and space overlaps. You have modus of life overlaps. They have very similar violent backgrounds. And so right now, and I love the fact that your last guest said one of the things the FBI does really well is the child protection task force that we have. And that is, they come in and they can start drawing linkages through data online, through the dark web, all these things to start spreading this net out to kind of figure out who's doing what, find victims and find the perpetrators more than anything, because they're out there. We have an opportunity here, if handled well,
Robin,
to do that.
Wouldn't it be nice? Would it be nice if we could announce to that community that the Oklahoma State authorities, the Sheriff's Department, the FBI, they need your help. If you think you may have been abused by this person, we need your help to find others. Nope, they won't speak to us at all. They won't even tell us what they took from the house. I think they're covering their butts in the worst way at this point. And it's shameful to see what's transpiring in this awful, awful case. Robin Drake, this is not the last time we're going to talk. We're learning new things every day. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You betcha, Ashley. Thank you.
It's crazy. It's crazy. The brother was a rotten apple. I mean, he was a rotten apple. Stuff has come out about their mother. I mean, it's totally crazy. And the fact that this guy, I just keep saying it, and I'm sorry, but the fact that he was let out of prison is freaking astounding. Like, had these been my children, let me tell you, it would have been hell and high water. Okay, you couldn't have stopped me from, I mean, it would not have been run like this, let me tell you, for one. It just would not have been. I would have dragged the freaking cops all up and down and through every inch of that damn property and said, did you get that? Write that shit down. Take a picture of that. Freaking, you know what I'm saying? It's just craziness. Okay, guys, I know this has been a super long live. I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to get all the information out to you. I'm almost there. Thank you guys all that are still here. I love and appreciate all of you.
Now to the latest in Okmulgee County, where 7 bodies were found last week on a property near Henryetta. The attorney for one of the victims told our partner station KJRH in Tulsa that OSBI dive teams have been on the property and using sonar devices on at least one pond. They also brought an excavator to the scene. Investigators say Jesse McFadden shot and killed 6 people, 5 of them teenagers, before turning the gun on himself. OSBI recently took lead of the case, and they've only said that an investigation into this case continues.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm trying to be informative and I'm trying to just give you guys everything all in one spot, you know, so everybody can get caught up and everybody can know what is really happening with this case. Okay, now let me read this to you guys. What happened here is a national embarrassment. OSBI agents spotted at crime scene home in Henryetta. Agents with the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations were spotted gathering evidence at the crime scene home where the horrific murders of 6 people, including 5 children, took place. There is no doubt that this was a house of horrors, said Cameron Spradling, the attorney for one of the murder victims' family. OSBI agents were seen posted up at the Henryetta home. It appears they were gathering evidence. Officials said on Monday, Jesse McFadden, a registered sex offender, shot his wife, Holly, her children, Tiffany, Michael, and Riley, along with their friends, Brittany and Ivy. Detectives said McFadden shot them before turning the gun on himself. Which, again, I don't know how they could know that. Justin Webster, Ivy's father, told News 4 he wanted answers and closure. The property owner, who McFadden was renting from, let the Webster family and KFOR inside the home where the murders took place. You know, you got to wonder about that landlord, too. You really do. I mean, honestly, I feel like you got to worry about everybody in this case. Everybody. Okay. Let me play. Is this the one? Sorry, hold on a second, y'all. Okay. So that's that article, which was posted May 7th. Sorry, I'm just trying to get through all this, you guys. Oh, thank you, guys. Okay. Now let's go to this next video.
It's hard to believe that there was anything more that could be found. But how is it that you and your family were able to get back into that home and discover yet even more evidence?
On Friday, the landlord, as we were planning the funeral, notified us that we had 3 days to get on the property or everything was going to go in a dumpster this Monday. We stopped the funeral, and myself, Holly's godmother, and her godmother's daughter, just the 3 of us, went to the house. And we found 5 phones. We found a notebook ledger with the names. We just found other things, and that's the other family members come. The police came. Yeah, we found a lot of horrifying things. But
can you explain, Lynn, a little bit more about the ledger? Whose handwriting was it, and what was in the ledger?
Just names and ages, like numbers. I didn't recognize, but I knew it was something important. We did turn it over to the police. The most probably disturbing evidence I found that day is I pulled the dresser out, and behind it was a towel with duct tape all around it, and I pulled it, and it was restraints, Velcro restraints, unlike the other restraints, which was laying all through the house. This one was taped to the back of the dresser. I asked the deputy that was on the scene if he wanted it. He said, "This is not an active crime scene. It's solved. If you don't want it, put it in the dumpster." And I begged.
This is what the deputy told to you over the weekend. You found additional restraints that very well could have had DNA of potentially other victims on it.
I begged him, "Please take this." I said, "Please take this. It's not like the chains. They weren't laid out. They were taped behind a dresser." He said, the victims are dead. The perpetrator's dead. If you don't want them, ma'am, put them in the dumpster. I said, why would
What
I
did you end
want
up
them?
doing with them?
I put them in a garbage bag. On that day, we thought what we would do is hire a private investigator. I hid him in the house and we left. In fact, I had told by the police I had to leave or he was going to arrest me. When I asked for what, he said, we're not leaving. I was like, I have permission to be here, but we left and we returned the next day and nothing could prepare anyone for what we had to find.
Can you tell me a little bit more, Lynn, about what you found under the floorboards?
The first set of clothes wasn't in the floorboards. They were wadded up in the closet. The first pair I pulled out was just some bloody shorts. But the second, and to me, the dry blood was obvious, but it was the second pair of little underwear. The fluid was, yeah, we put those in garbage bags. We went back to get as much evidence out before my brother and the grandmother got there. When the OSBI got there, I gave my interview and I said, no one should have to see what I say. No one had to collect what I had to. I'm not a crime scene investigator. I'm not a police officer. I should not have had to see those things. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating. OSCI was amazing, but that's just, there was just a lot of stuff that in time I really want to sit down and talk to someone about. I need to be sensitive to the victims, my own family members. Some don't even know. I stepped on a hypodermic needle. I got.
Lynn, can I ask you about the nature? I know this is extraordinarily difficult, but it's critical, this evidence in children out there.
Absolutely.
Can you see the nature of the Polaroids, the 4-inch stack of Polaroids?
There was a lot of pictures, not just Polaroids. I found probably 4 binders. They're about this thick. I started opening them up. The first thing was Jesse McFadden's psychological evaluation. I'm just trying to be so sensitive. I don't even know if I can publicly say some of the things that can be on TV. I don't know how to say it.
Were the pictures of children, and were they sexual in nature?
I don't want to talk about it, okay?
I understand.
I promise.
Were you able to turn those photographs over to the police?
I turned everything I found. I turned over correspondence with other inmates. I turned everything over that I could find.
Thank you for watching. Go to News Nation now.
I mean, for what that woman seriously went through and the stuff that she had to find, she's right. She's like, I'm not a trained investigator. I'm not somebody who, is trained to come into these situations and find these things. Like, I'm not mentally prepared to deal with what I am dealing with right now. And it is just so freaking sad. Like, Stevie Wonder could see a cover up here. For real. And that's just the way that it is. Okay. Hold on one second, y'all. Okay, yep, I have one more clip and then a couple more things I want to show you, and then we will be all done here, guys, for tonight. I want to thank you all for staying tuned in.
First at 5 o'clock, an Oklahoma State representative hopes to pass a law named in honor of the victims of the Henryetta murders. Thanks for joining us. I'm Craig Day.
And I'm Lori Fulbright. That legislation would be called Knight's Law, named after the Henryetta School's mascot, and would help protect potential victims from people who are convicted of sex crimes. News on 6's Reagan Ledbetter is in our newsroom to explain. Reagan?
Craig and Lori, Representative Scott Fettgetter says he was furious to learn Jesse McFadden was out of prison after being convicted of rape, then being charged with having sexual conversations with a minor while he was still in prison.
You know, if you're a registered sex offender, pedophile, you do your full time. You know, there should be no getting out. This could have all been prevented.
The grandmother of one of the victims, 14-year-old Ivy Webster, says she's angry that current Oklahoma laws allow convicted rapists like Jesse McFadden to get out of prison after serving 85% of their sentence. She says if McFadden hadn't been released in October of 2020 after serving his 85%, he might still be in prison today.
It needs to be like the U.S. Census. When a sex offender moves into your area, everybody gets a copy of it. You know, things need to change.
Representative Scott Fettgetter from Okmulgee passed Kaylee's law in 2019 that orders courts to issue no contact orders between convicted sex offenders and their victims. He says an even stronger law is needed now, not only to protect victims, but potential victims as well. Fettgetter wants to see sex offenders like McFadden serve 100% of their sentence before they can be released. Ivy's family says they may never get all of the answers about why these murders happened, but they hope law changes will keep this from happening again.
Everybody just needs to keep in mind if that was their daughter, granddaughter, sister. So this is our first year of first.
Now, the current legislative session ends on May 26, so any law would have to be put together and passed before then. Reagan Ledbetter, Oklahoma's own News on 6.
Okay, you guys. Now, all right, now let me pull this up for you. Because that was the last video clip I had for tonight. But I did want to show you guys this. Okay. Now this says, the problem is we don't know what else to do, said the investigator. The only person who can tell us what happened is dead, but we can try to piece it together, said Justin. We are open to any suggestions you all can give, said the investigator. What would this accomplish? Local law enforcement had no idea of the value of what was left behind. Right there, I'm going to call BS. Spradling said McFadden's computers and the phones could have been key to finding out what happened, as well as finding more predators, more potential victims, and maybe even pictures of the victims before they were taken. Spradling said Saturday the OSBI was called in and case was handed over to them. Agents also brought a U-Haul to the scene. If they brought a U-Haul, they probably carried everything out of that house. All of it. What happened here is a national embarrassment. 100%. Okay. Now I want to bring up this next thing to you guys. Sorry, y'all. It is late. It is late for me to be on here. Damn. Okay. Y'all never see me this late. All right, Sass. Good night. Okay. Here, this says, the first sexual incident was reported in 2009. He was caught naked in his cell with another inmate. The next sexual incident was in 2010 when another inmate accused him of RAPE. McFadden admitted to sexual relationships with the inmate and was disciplined internally. He was still let out, even after all of these things that he did. Sugar, no, I didn't. They're automatic. Like they come automatic rolled throughout the thing. But guys, I just wanted to bring all this. This is very long, but I just wanted to bring all this information to you so you guys can all be caught up. It's all in one place. It's all in one video. And just go through everything with you guys, because I mean, we all talked about cover up and corruption in Kylie's case, but this case, I mean, is even more corrupt, right in your face. Cover ups, no evidence being collected. I mean, we're seeing the same thing, but in a huger picture, like in a way bigger picture, and also with many more victims, many more victims. So, you know, I mean, guys, this could have all been avoided. This should have never happened. But I want to thank you guys all so much for being here. Thank you for sticking through this long live with me. I really appreciate it. Please hit that thumbs up if you have not done so. Please subscribe to the channel. Now, we are having problems with YouTube and our content. It's been a lot of back and forth. It's been a lot of, so we are trying to work through or work on some backup plans. Our own website is in the talks. So, but I mean, you know, it costs a lot of money. So if anybody wants to donate to help us keep coming with this content, to keep doing what we do, links are all down in the description below. Again, anybody that wants to join to become a member of the family, we would love to have you. We appreciate all of our subs, our members, everything. So I love you guys. Stay strong, stay healthy, stay safe. Keep asking those hard questions and keep spreading that light. I will keep you updated when I get more information. I love you all. Have a good night. Please share this video and please come back and comment. Please comment down in the comment section below. It really helps the YouTube algorithm, and it really helps YouTube push this to more viewers, to push out our content. So please do that. Even if it's emojis, even if you just want to spam emojis, it doesn't even matter. Just please let me know, or just please fill up the comment section. I love you guys. Have a good night.